we have been more careful. I told him the only thing I could think of that it would be on our stream would be if some of the allegedly whitelisted music that we have isn't whitelisted or has become unwhitelisted since we added it. But if that is the case, we will get that will show up.
Some clips every once in a while, or like,
I mean,
are on the video because I leave them in there. So
I mean, it's very possible.
Could be that.
Hopefully they have hopefully they know and they can say this is what, in which case we'll know.
Yeah. Good morning.
And away we go, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages. The Rob Brown Show is back on your radio. It is the fan upstate. Yo, bang, nailed it. Lyricist.
That was amazing.
I know. It's kind of what I do. It's just be amazing, start to finish, top to bottom, left to right, up and down every single day. That's what we do during the 4-hour sports talk extravaganza. That is the Rob Brown Show. We want to get your behind up and moving every morning at 6 a.m. Welcome in, my dear friends, family, colleagues, and comrades in arms. I am Rob Brown on the other side of the metaphorical glass, the guy in charge of this radio program and every radio program that you love anytime, anywhere, any day, any station. He is the great one, Lonzo. What up, Zoe?
Lonzo is a superstar.
Fair.
I haven't played it in a while.
It has been a minute.
Cannot wait to get to discuss the CFP today.
Well, hell, let's just jump right in. Why not? We got nothing better to do. I mean, we could go back into the nuances and context of stand-up comedy in contemporary America, or we can talk college football playoff rankings. Which do you prefer, America? It's up to you. We are indeed men of the people.
I just heard Ray whispering from the ether in my headphones.
Stick to sports.
Yes. That's exactly what he sounded like.
Somebody asked me a couple of days ago as we were making the Ray died jokes. They're like, what if one day somebody reaches out and they're like, yo, this is Ray's kid. He actually did die. Would that make me feel bad? I don't know if it would, to be honest. Am I a bad person? I think I might be a bad person. I'd be like, well, tell him we said thanks for the gag. Thanks for the shtick. Thanks for the gimmick.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
We have got a lot to get to today. We have got to get to some more NFL news, notes, and storylines. The whole thing about the suspension of Sarah Al-Shahir for the hit on Trevor Lawrence this weekend. It took a left-hand turn I did not expect yesterday. We're going to get to that coming up in a handful of minutes from now. Of course, we spend a little bit more time celebrating the wondrous sporting event that is the NBA Cup, as our quarterfinal field is officially locked in. And we will have, ladies and gentlemen, a new banner being raised by a new team in a new stadium as your reigning, defending, undisputed NBA Cup champions have been eliminated, meaning the quarterfinal cup. Only 2 teams that made it to the round of 8 last year made it to the round of 8 this year. We are guaranteed a new champ. And I know one thing is true today, and it is the fact that the great one, Lonzo, is buzzing, vibrating with excitement and anticipation about the NBA in-season cup.
Yeah, as I said, I believe it was last week. This is Golden State's. It's their turn. This is contrived. This is a work. It's Golden State's going to win it.
If you believe that,
they knew the Lakers were going to win last year. Golden State's going to win this year.
If you believe that, then by default, you believe the NBA is rigged. Do you believe the NBA is rigged? You have to believe both. You can't separate. You can't say, well, they rigged the cup, but not, because the cup are regular season games. So by default, if you believe the cup is rigged, here's
what you can do as if you're an analytics guy, if you're one of the NBA nerds, you can look at games and go, okay, this team will beat that team. And you can't be 100%, but you can be pretty close to it and figure out what games to make sure this game counts, because you know that team is going to beat that team. So in that And that way you can rig it just by looking to know who plays who at what, because
that would work if they weren't in divisions. They're in pods. There are 4 teams to pods, right?
Matter.
You can't do
it
unless you said
if there's a block of games and all these games in a row count, then that would be one thing.
That's not how they do it.
Right.
That's not how they do
my point. It's here and there, so you can look and go, okay, Golden State plays this team here. They're going to beat that team. We'll count that game. Golden State plays this team here. They're gonna beat that. So we're gonna count that.
But
game.
there's only 3 teams. It's not. This isn't a tournament where they go, okay, we're going to count the games that Golden State plays against Portland, Utah, and New Orleans, and only those. There are 4 teams in every pod.
Who's going to win it? Who's going to win?
I have no idea. There's 8 quarterfinal teams.
Well,
I very much think the Thunder can win it.
If Golden State wins, then we'll wait till next year, and I'll pick who I think is going to win next year. And if I'm right next year, then that's proof that I'm right.
And if Golden State does not win it,
well, then I was wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
Yeah,
this is my theory. This is my working theory, and it will play out. And the only way we'll know the end result, if my theory is correct, is next year or the year after.
Yeah, but see, the problem you create when you go with an unfalsifiable premise, and we'll get to the college football playoffs here in a minute. It absolutely is unfalsifiable, because there is a chance that even if it's not rigged, Golden State just literally actually just wins it. Like, you're creating this thing where you say if A, then B, and there is no draw between the two.
That's why I said we wait till next year, and I pick one next year, and if it happens again, I didn't say this is the end all this year. I said next year. So if I'm right this year, next year, at the beginning of the whole thing, I'll pick who I think it's going to be. And if I'm right again, then that goes to prove that what I'm saying is correct.
The problem is, if you say Golden State wins, therefore it's rigged. That means, and then you say the only way to falsify this is I'll do it again next year. The problem you create is then that is a year where you go around saying, well, I'm not saying it's rigged, but I think it's rigged.
No,
right?
No.
A year of damage.
No, I will say it's rigged for the entire year. I won't say it's not. I just said it's a work, and we'll be able to prove it next year.
The problem I have with this, you know what this is like? This is like when a big time news outlet publishes a story, and then like a day later, that story is proven incorrect. So they post a retraction, but they, instead of when the story was on page 1, they post the retraction on page 7 of section B. They're like, oh, our bad. That thing we posted yesterday, completely erroneous. The problem is everybody reads the front page. Nobody's flipping to section B, page 7 to see the retraction. So all these people start to believe this story, and so much it grows legs.
That's a very 1995 analogy, because, I mean, how many papers are actually out there anymore? Okay,
fine. The story lands on Google homepage, and then the retraction's on page 9 of the results.
Never been to Google home.
You've never been to Google?
I mean, if you're talking about the first page that pops up when you log on to Google, is that the Google homepage?
Yeah. You know, when you go to Google and you Google something, the results page 1 is homepage results.
Google homepage. Okay. So what you mean your Google search?
Okay. Google search primary page.
All right. Thank you for the clarification.
Got to get it right. Details matter.
That. Your clarification would have been on page 9.
And if I get something wrong, don't worry. I'll correct it Friday at 8:40 a.m. That's how this is working.
Okay. All right.
We'll get back to the NBA Cup later, because I am enjoying it. I don't care. I am enjoying it thoroughly. But we do have to get to, as Lonzo pointed out just mere minutes ago, the college football playoff rankings, which dropped last night to the shock of exactly no one. The Oregon Ducks are the 1 seed, no doubt about it. The Texas Longhorns checking at number 2, no doubt about it. That does not mean that is where those teams will finish, however, because both of those teams will play in their conference championship games this weekend. And
they're both favored too, right?
Both of them are favored. Yeah. And Manuel Ward, who is the College Football Playoff Committee chairperson, did talk a little bit about this. I pulled some audio from the interview he did last night on the rankings announcement show, and we will diagnose and break that down coming up a little later in the show. Penn State checks in at 3. They are in their conference championship game as well, of course, against the number 1 team, Oregon Ducks. Notre Dame, who does not play in a conference championship game, are ranked at number 4. Remember, the highest spot they can be in, and it does look like the highest spot that they will be in, is the 5 seed of the bracket itself, meaning Notre Dame will always play in the first round, but as the 5 seed. There are some advantages that come along with that. We'll talk about that later in the show. Speaking of number 5, in the rankings, not the bracket, in the rankings, that's where you find the Georgia Bulldogs. The Ohio State Buckeyes are number 6. Tennessee at number 7, the highest ranked ACC team, and a team that will be participating in the ACC Conference Championship game against the Clemson Tigers, or the SMU Mustangs. They check in at number 8. Indiana, 11-1 out of the Big Ten, is number 9, a spot ahead of the Mountain West Conference Championship game participant, the Boise State Broncos. And here is where the fun and the shenanigans begin. At number 11, the Alabama Crimson Tide. At number 12, the Miami Hurricanes. At number 13, the Ole Miss Rebels. And down at number 14 is where you find the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Now, push pause on that. We're going to circle back around to it before the end of this segment. Let me just finish out your top 25. Arizona State is in the Big 12 Conference Championship game. They are number 15. Iowa State at 16. Clemson falls to 17, down 5 spots after a loss to South Carolina. BYU, not in the Big 12 championship game, is at number 18. 19 is Mizzou. UNLV, who will square off with Boise State in the Mountain West Conference Championship game, is at number 20. Number 21, Illinois. 22, Syracuse. Number 23, Deion's Colorado Buffaloes. And that is how you have to say it now. You just have to say Deion's Colorado Buffaloes.
No, Coach Primes.
That's the name of the program.
Coach Prime's Colorado Buffaloes.
Deion's Colorado Buffaloes, number 23.
Coach Prime.
He's not my coach. I don't call him Coach Sweeney, and I don't call him Coach Beamer, despite being friend of the show. They're not my coach. Number 24 is Army. Number 25 is Memphis. So let's circle back around to where the controversy is. Let's start with this great one. Is there, in your opinion, from 1 to 10, is there any controversy in there that you think needs to be addressed? A lot of people have said that Indiana at 11-1 should not be a playoff team. Strength of schedule was pathetic outside of the game against Ohio State, a game in which they got absolutely wrecked.
Penn State's strength of schedule was not great either.
State. So let's take a look at that real quick. Penn State had on their schedule West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State. They did have number 19 Illinois, handed Illinois their first loss of the year. UCLA, USC, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, wrapped it up with Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. I don't disagree with you. What you're looking at if you are Penn State, boosting up your schedule, is you played and won a ranked game against Illinois. You played and won a ranked game. Actually, it's Illinois and Penn State, I think, were the only 2 ranked teams that this team played.
Only played Illinois and Ohio State, according to what you just said, and they lost to Ohio State.
That's very fair.
So I don't know who they played ranking wise.
It's very fair. So Penn State at number 3, they are in their conference championship game. We'll come to that here in a minute. I don't have an issue with that. There are folks that are saying that Ohio State, the loss to Michigan, an unranked Michigan team, because if we're going down that path, Ohio State has 2 ranked wins. They are at Penn State, which is a big one, if you agree that Penn State is a playoff caliber team. And, of course, the loss to Oregon, a 1-point loss, the closest win Oregon had all year.
Indiana.
And I was coming to that last. And then last, obviously, a blowout win over Indiana. Final score 38-15, but it wasn't that close, to be honest, if you're looking at that. In fact, that Ohio State game is the reason that a lot of people believe that Indiana should not have been included in the top of that playoff bracket. So there's a little controversy between 1 and 10, but we all know what the controversy is that impacts those of you listening around here. Now, Clemson falls 5 spots down to number 17. There's not a lot of controversy here. You lost another game. You got 3 losses out of the ACC.
I guess it's mostly Clemson fans online. They're upset that Ohio State only fell to 6, and they want to know why Clemson fell so far. They weren't ranked that high in the first place, and strength of schedule does come into play. And also the fact, you play in the ACC. You don't play in the SEC. You don't play in the Big Ten. That is a strike against you.
Well, and again,
you tried to get out. You just couldn't get out.
I would make the point that, and I've said this before, playing in the Big Ten is not in and of itself a distinguisher. It's just not. It's not that good of a conference. It's a top. There are 4 teams in the Big Ten. But if you're a team like Ohio State, you play 3 of them. And by the way, if you're making the argument that Indiana is not actually a playoff team and they're really not that good, they just play one of the weakest schedules in America, then you would say there's 3 teams in the Big Ten. Now, you got Illinois floating around in there. That's been a top 25 team off and on, questions about Indiana. But what I will say is Ohio State played 3 1-2 ranked games. They're only lost by a point to number 1.
Unless my math is wrong, which could be there are 5 Big Ten teams in the top 25.
Well, there are now. Snuck in at the end there. But we'll circle back around.
I mean, you said there's only, and there is more.
Here's what it comes down to for Clemson. You were sitting at 12. You lost your last game to your rival at home. It doesn't matter. The good news for Clemson is because they like this team just refuses to die. The good news for Clemson is you win the ACC title game, you're in. You have you earned an auto bid. You and Miami stinking the place up. And being one of the worst defenses of any playoff contender, you earned a road. You earned a path. Win against SMU this Saturday night in Charlotte, North Carolina. By the way, I will be at that game covering it live. So follow me across the social media handles at The Rob Brown Show. I will get there pregame and give you whatever I see from the press box. I will be there. I will live tweet and post throughout the game. And then I will be in the postgame press conferences as well to hear what gets said, win or lose for the Clemson Tigers. Beat SMU, you're in. Now, you may be going in as the 12 seed, but in is in, right? It's better than some other schools. South Carolina, very envious right now of Clemson. Why wouldn't you be? Win and in. I think South Carolina would take that deal right now, right? So, not a lot of controversy as far as I am concerned around Clemson because, look, you dropped 5 spots. Ohio State only dropped 4, but they stayed inside the top 6. Why Clemson such a drop? Well, 3 losses versus a pair of them. 3 losses in the ACC. And I've been told a lot of this should not be a shock to most of you. The playoff committee does not view the ACC with any level of respect. They just don't. Whether they should or not, that's subjective. It is up to you. A lot of folks out there believe the ACC does not deserve any respect as a conference. It's not that good of a conference, and it's hard to push back against that. There's SMU, there's Miami, there's Clemson. There's not really anything else in that conference that you look at and you go, that's a threat. Had Florida State lived up to expectations, then I think the ACC would have had a better shot at getting more teams in. Now, this is where things get interesting. If SMU loses to Clemson in a phenomenal football game, but let's say they lose by 1 or 2 points, right? If they lose the way Ohio State lost to Oregon, 30, 33, 32, 35, 34, somewhere in that range. Would the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, who said last night, Manuel Ward said last night on ESPN during the show, he said, if your team is not playing in a conference championship game, you can't change. You can't improve. He said that, right? You can't go up there because there's no more data points to evaluate where you are. Effectively saying only teams that win conference championship games can improve their standing. Nobody else really can. The question mark is how far would a non-conference champion fall? And the reason is because SMU could still theoretically lose that game and get in. And if they do, it bumps Bama. But Bama being 11 and Miami being 12 ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina, that is where a lot of us went, bang, there it is. There's the conspiracy. There's the controversy. Let's talk about it when we come back. Rob Lonzo and you, The Rob Brown Show, the Fan Upstate.
Lights.
All right, guys, quick live read. We're coming back. Scott, Joe, good morning, fellas. Y'all stick around. Be right back. All right, dudes and dudettes, we're back. Thanks for hanging in there. Good morning. Stacy says ACC gets 2 in regardless. Not necessarily. Again, and I do think, to be honest with you, I do think we will get a level of what matters more on-field results brand, or how much the brand matters, based on whether or not they drop as. I could absolutely see them dropping SMU behind Alabama. I could see them moving them to 12 and going, oh, well, we put them in the top 12. And, in most normal years, that's going to be a playoff spot, but just not in year one.
No, if Clemson loses, they're out.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking if Clemson wins, SMU would drop.
If Clemson loses, SMU's automatically in. Miami might move up and be. I mean, they're at 12
they said
now.
Last night, Miami nor any other team can improve their spot. So that would leave you with one at-large spot, which would go to Alabama, because you've still got to get the Big 12 champ in there too. And the Big 12 the Big 12 participants are both outside the top 12. So that's 2 spots. Or excuse me, 1 spot that would be open, that 12 spot.
So
and that
being
would
ranked
be
12 means nothing.
Correct.
Okay.
Honestly, being 10, 11, or 12 means nothing, depending on where the conference champion participants stand. If you end up in a weird year, and you've got it this year with Clemson being outside and the Big 12 champs being outside, that's 2 spots that could theoretically come from outside the top 12. So we're talking college football playoff rankings right out of the gate. I suspect we are going to be spending quite a bit of time on this one today. South Carolina checks in 14, a spot behind Ole Miss at 13, 2 spots behind Miami at number 12, and Alabama at number 11. The College Football Playoff Committee did themselves no favors in trying to shake the accusations that they will fight to find a way to include the Alabama Crimson Tide, regardless of scenario. And I'll be honest with you here. I understand hanging on to that conspiracy. I am one of the people that is in on that conspiracy, and here is why. When I look at Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, the reason South Carolina checks in last, or at least the reason that's going to be given to you, is head-to-head games matter, and Alabama and Ole Miss both beat South Carolina. You can drum on and on all that you want about South Carolina playing better football than Ole Miss and Alabama right now. And I agree with you. They 100,000% are. I think if you run those 2 games right now, I'd pick South Carolina to win both of them. Okay? I'd pick South Carolina to win both. But there is a question mark about season-long results versus who's the hottest team at the end of the year. There is a question mark, because if you say, well, they're the best team now, so they deserve to go in now, then what you're saying is, I should start the season late, right? Like if I'm a college football coach, games 1, 2, and 3, I really shouldn't throw everything I got. I should go half speed. And if I go half speed and I lose a game, who cares as long as I finish up strong, right? So head-to-head games have to matter, and that's why Ole Miss and Alabama are ahead. The controversy to me in this spot was avoided by South Carolina, by the committee, courtesy of those 2 heads-up wins by Alabama and Ole Miss over South Carolina. That whether you agree with them or not, they have that bullet in the gun, and they are going to use that bullet when you guys go on and on about how South Carolina is the hottest team now and they deserve a shot. They're going to go, well, it is a season of football, and we have got to take into consideration the whole season, and you lost to both those teams. That isn't where the controversy in this lies. The controversy in this lies, and I was on BetMGM last night with Ryan Horvat and Brad Evans, and we talked a little bit about this because I went on at 8 o'clock after the playoff rankings were revealed. I asked the question last night. I'll ask the question of you guys now. Can anyone at all, anywhere, period, give me a reason why Miami, with that loss to Syracuse, they fall to 10-2 on the season. Can anyone, anywhere, give me a reason why it is that Miami goes behind Alabama but ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina? You can't argue it's because they're playing their best football, Alabama. They got blown the hell out on the road at Oklahoma. You know, the same Oklahoma team that South Carolina went to Norman and beat the brakes off of a few weeks back. Alabama put 3 on the board against that Oklahoma team out in Norman. So you can't argue that it's because Alabama's playing better football right now. They're just not. You can't argue it's about the record because they have the same record as Ole Miss and South Carolina. It makes no sense. There is no train of thought. And I'm a little frustrated, to keep it a buck with you, that Reese Davis and the gang didn't ask Manuel Ward about this directly last night, except for one spot where they only asked why it was that Alabama was 11 and Miami was 12. They didn't ask why Alabama was 11, Miami 12, and then Ole Miss and South Carolina were behind Miami. They just asked why Alabama and Miami. Here's what Manuel Ward said.
Let's start with the last team in the cluster of SEC teams in Miami. What gave Alabama the edge over the rest of that group?
Well, Reese, it's good to be with you again. What it came down to is, as we evaluated both teams and looked at how they rank, obviously we think highly of both teams. One's at 11, one's at 12. But what it really came down to is Alabama is 3-1 against current top 25 teams, and Miami is 0-1. Alabama is 6-1 against teams above 500, and Miami's 4-2. Both have had some losses that weren't what they wanted out of those games. But in the last 3 games, Miami has lost twice. And so for us, in evaluating their body of work, we felt that Alabama got the edge over Miami.
Like, okay.
What did the politician just say?
Like, okay, yeah, dude. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I said to Brad and Ryan last night. I'm like, tell me right now, because they were on the air, obviously, when this show dropped. So they didn't get a chance to listen and react to the interview that Reese did with Manuel Ward directly. I did. I was watching it when it happened. And I swear to you, I was like, dude, you know what he is? And for the record, it's exactly what he is. Manuel Ward's job as the chairman of that committee is to go on television and make that committee look as good as possible, right? Nobody that's not trying to self-sabotage is going to go on television and be like, hey, you know this committee that I'm the chairman of? You know this committee that I'm in charge of? You know this committee whose meetings I run and whose decisions I have to attach my signature to? This committee sucks. This committee screwed up a lot. There's like one place in time that happens, and that's on Capitol Hill, when a representative of one party gets onto a committee that is largely comprised of the members of the other party. But that's it, right? It shouldn't happen with this. But it was the most politician group of answers that I've ever heard. And I got more audio from the interview that we'll get to a little bit later on in the show, because we're going to be talking about this, I assume, primarily throughout the entire 4-hour extravaganza today. But I listened to that, and I'm like, somebody ask about Ole Miss and South Carolina, because everything you just said about Alabama is more true about South Carolina than it is about Alabama. South Carolina has 3 losses. 2 of those losses came against teams that are inside the top 13. Their other loss comes to a team that just fell out of the top 25. This week, just fell out of the top 25 in LSU. Like, just fell out. So when I look at that, and then I look at Alabama's losses, a loss to Vanderbilt. Yeah, it's the best Vanderbilt team of all time. Sure, I agree with that. Best Vandy team of all time. Do you know what Vanderbilt's final record was? 6-6. 5-win team in the SEC. It's the best Vanderbilt team ever. It's still a very mid team, with all due respect to Clark Lee and Diego Pavia, 2 of my favorite people in college football right now. It ain't a great loss. Then you lost to Tennessee. That's the best loss they have. Then you lost to Oklahoma. And not just a loss at unranked Oklahoma, but you got your asses whipped by Oklahoma. 24-3. You put up 3 points on the board. That's it. So everything that you just said about Alabama is more true about South Carolina. Now, I'm not making the argument, at least not right now. I'm not making the argument that South Carolina should have been ranked ahead of Alabama. I'm making the argument that either Miami should have been ranked ahead of Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, or they should have been ranked behind Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. They shouldn't be in the middle. What's the justification for that? And I love that, Reese. And again, I bought in last year because ESPN does have the rights to the college football playoff television set of games. I did buy into the conspiracy last year, and I'm not fully out of it yet, to keep it a buck, that ESPN has investment in getting the brands in. Because it is, whether we like it or not. This should not matter. It should not be relevant, but it is. Somebody went and looked at the Nielsen ratings over the past, I think, 5 or 7 years. I don't remember the chart. I should have saved it. It's my bad. I didn't. This is on me. I saw it in passing while I was like riding around town doing stuff with the wife. Somebody went and they pulled the Nielsen ratings, and something like, great one, 70% of all college football viewership over the past half a decade, 70% of the eyeballs that watched a college football game watched one of 8 teams. It was like Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Texas. I don't remember who the other ones are, but it was like 7 or 8 teams that got like 70% of the eyeballs on their games.
So what you're saying is good teams have people watch them?
What I'm saying is the brands have people watch them. It doesn't matter.
But why do they watch them? Because they're good. If they're bad, they're not watching them.
I don't necessarily disagree. Some of those teams have had some bad seasons. I'm sure that's fine. But is that because there's a strong correlation between those brands and the teams that are in? I'm not saying that they're not good teams. But right now, is Alabama like certifiably better than Miami? Miami's got a very weak defense. I don't disagree. Alabama just went and put 3 points on the board at Oklahoma. Is that a team you would say is certainly better than Miami? A team that ended up with a better record, a team that was not eliminated from conference contention until literally the very last second of the very last game. But even if you say, yes, Alabama's better than Miami. Hang on, let me finish my question. Even if you say, yes, Alabama's better than Miami, that's fine. Then why are Ole Miss and South Carolina not better than Miami? There's no justifiable reason, which is why people say you massage that to not insult Miami, a national brand, but make sure that Alabama's got. This is not a guarantee, because if Clemson one of the spots is eaten by a Big 12 champ, and if Clemson beats SMU, they get a spot as well. It feels to me as if this is just a way to make sure Alabama's in the best possible spot to get there. Is there any argument against that?
There is, but we don't have time. We got to go break.
Well, good thing. We're not done. We're coming back to it. Because this is a question that got asked a lot last night, and I'd like to hear more about it. And we will talk about it when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Playoffs have been about their straight up record. They need to tell the top 12 best record teams. So that means, for instance, Army with 1 loss should be in. Again, Joe, I do think there is some validity to the thought that the eye test matters. Right now, if I put Army on the field with Ohio State, what's the final score of that game? Ohio State, most of the points, Army, very few of them. Like, respectfully, Army had a crack at a top 5 team in Notre Dame. What happened? They got destroyed by Notre Dame, a team that most of us do not think is a national championship.
I don't think Notre Dame is that great. So
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. But that team is also 11-1 with the worst 1 loss of any playoff team. But they are 11-1 too, and they got absolutely destroyed. I am fine with the fact that this is a subjective process. I've been pulling for Army and Navy all season long. I can't sit here and honestly tell you to your face Army's one of the best 12 football teams in America. Can you? Would you be willing right now, Joe, to stake your reputation or a paycheck on Army beating anybody in the top 12? Would you put a paycheck on Army beating anybody? Let's use South Carolina's mark. Anybody in the top 14. If Army played South Carolina right now, what's the final score of that game? South Carolina wins by 3 touchdowns. Now, if Army was undefeated, Army could have potentially been inside the top 10, won the All-American Conference, and been one of the 5 ranked highest. There's a path there for the G5 teams. The path is, though, you have to go undefeated and win the conference championship. You do that, you got a shot. Look at Boise State. They're 11-1 out of the Mountain West. The door is open. But unfortunately, those smaller teams, because the competition level just isn't there, those smaller teams just have more work to do. Good win for Clemson basketball last night. Only win the ACC had against the. By the way, the ACC in basketball, woof. What a start to the year. What a start to the year. Getting absolutely smoked. They go 0-5 or 1-5 against the SEC last night, and Clemson was the only win, upset over Kentucky. South Carolina went up to Boston and beat the brakes off of Boston College. Good win for them, too. BC was never even in that game. I don't think South Carolina has the depth to make the run they made last year, but Colin Murray-Boyles is a dog. I watched a lot of basketball last night. I was also asleep at like 9:30. It was great. I should do that more often. I'm not going to, but I should. The Rob Brown Show continues here on the Fan Upstate. Make sure you follow us on our social media feeds at the Fan Upstate, at the Rob Brown Show, across Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Lonzo. What did I just say?
You said quitter.
Sometimes.
Yeah, too much sleep is a problem for you. Because,
dude, I went to sleep at like 9:30 last night.
But you're overly hyped, and you are reaching volumes that you haven't reached. I mean, the DBs are up there so much compared to what they've been, and probably the last year.
I was out. When I say out, I mean with a capital O. I did my hit on BetMGM tonight at 8 o'clock. I was in pajamas at 8:30. I was in the bed at 8:45. I was watching all the college basketball I could get my eyeballs on last night. And then I crashed at like 9:30. The wife came to bed at like 10. She's like, wow, you're out early. I was like, what time is it? I just fell asleep. She's like, no, dog, I've heard you snoring for like half an hour. It's 10 o'clock. I'm like, oh, all right. My bad. Let me go back to, because I cut off Zoe because I didn't realize how close we were to the break. Zoe, right before we end, we do have a phone call to get to, and we will hear in just a minute. My man Neil's hanging on.
Let me cut you off like you cut me off. I don't remember. So let's just go to, I mean, that was so long ago. Let's just go to the phone call.
Well, then.
And by the way, that's probably not his name, because the volume that I'm talking about, I tried, I had him spell it 3 or 4 times. So I don't know for sure what his name is. I got the last part, the E-A-L-E.
Okay.
And I don't, so we should just go and let him tell us what his name is.
We think it might be Neil hanging on the phone lines to talk a little college football playoff rankings. First off, is it Neil? Is that correct? Well, who do we have on?
Incorrect.
Who we got?
It's Dale.
Dale. There we go. Dale, welcome to the show, big dog. Good to have you back, brother.
It's really loud in here, Dale. I can't. I'm sorry, dude. I tried really hard.
You're trying to get that Wolverine out of your ear. I gotta take that shot.
If you want, whatever it is, I'm gonna go with someone had too much sleep and they're just extremely loud. That's what I'm gonna go.
That might be it. It might be it. Dale, what you got for us, big fella?
He's well rested. Shoot, I wish I were. Anyway, let's talk about this CFP ranking, especially from 11 through 14. At what point in time does body of work come into play? Okay? If you look at the road and home record of those schools, Alabama has lost more games on the road than they have won. South Carolina has won more games on the road. I believe their record on the road was 4-1 and 5-2 at home. As for Alabama, who was 7-0 at home and 2-3 on the road. Now, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure a team that's ranked 11th or 12th in the college football playoff going to be on the road.
That is correct.
Okay, so I already don't like Alabama's chances. Okay, how they could put Miami in front of or behind them, you're right. That's flabbergasting. The only thing I can think of is got to be schedule. But then, if you put strength of schedule into play, South Carolina's strength of schedule was far greater than Alabama.
Sure. I don't disagree.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Dale, I think you've got valid points, and I would even go so far as to say, like, the knock against Miami is, well, they're not that good defensively. Okay, they're still a football team, and if they have built a football team to be able to score so many points that it doesn't matter if they give up 40 because they're scoring 45 every week, I don't really have an issue with a 2-loss Miami team being ahead of Alabama. What I have an issue with is a 2-loss Miami team being ahead of Alabama or behind Alabama, but not behind Ole Miss and South Carolina as well. The fact that you wedged Miami in the middle makes it appear, whether I'm right or not, it makes it appear that the goal was to get Alabama as close to that final at-large bid. Because I think right now there's only one left, with the Big 12 champ coming from outside the top 12 and the possibility of Clemson winning the ACC and jumping in there. And oh, by the way, if UNLV beats Boise, they get one too. There's the possibility that it doesn't matter, that nobody from 11 down is getting in. But if there's only one bid, Alabama's going to get it. If there's two bids, Alabama and Miami are going to get it, which leads me back to, what is the process that you utilize that allowed you to say Miami's behind Alabama, but they are ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina? When South Carolina, they lost to Bama and Ole Miss, but they had a far more difficult schedule and have accomplished more in the past 6 weeks than either of those teams have. And Ole Miss and Alabama are virtually identical in every other way. Miami either needs to be at 11 ahead of number 12 Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina, or they need to be dropped back to number 14 with Ole Miss and South Carolina sliding up. There's no rationale for Miami to just be dropped in the middle behind Alabama other than we're finagling a way to get Bama in which case the committee has just basically said, if you ain't a blue blood, you better go undefeated because there's no other way in for you.
Well, I agree with that, because obviously the committee showed favoritism towards the head-to-head and not so much the strength of schedule, which kind of like blew my mind, because normally you want the teams that have played the tougher schedule and are proven to get in there. What was the knock on Florida State last year? Their strength of schedule was, and then, the quarterback at the end didn't help their case.
Which, by the way, if your quarterback going down doesn't help your case, then don't we wipe the LSU record off the books for South Carolina? Because Lenora Sellers, who was balling the hell out in the first half, then goes down to injury, tried to come back in the second half, couldn't pull it off. If the committee has already set the precedent that what we think your quarterback is capable of impacts our thoughts on the team, then the LSU loss, a last possession, last points loss, should not be a big knock against South Carolina. But put that aside for just a minute. I am looking at everything else, all things compiled. South Carolina obviously had a stronger strength of schedule than Miami. I would argue it was a stronger strength of schedule, top to bottom, than Ole Miss and Alabama. Listen, Dale, I am fine if they want to say that the head-to-head is the most important thing. I'm good with that. Let's be consistent about that, though. And if we're looking at strength of schedule, again, I don't care what metric you look at, strength of schedule, head-to-head, eye test, whatever. There's no world that Miami goes behind Alabama but ahead of Ole Miss. Those two teams are identical. There's no reason for it, and that is why I circle back around to, I just don't trust the College Football Playoff Selection Committee as it is built today, because they make these decisions that don't seem to have any justification behind them, and the only thing I have left to assume is you're protecting the brand. And if your goal is protect the brand, then your goal is not get the 12 best teams in. And if your goal isn't get the 12 best teams in, then why do I respect the national championship process?
I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. The strength of schedule thing is the thing that has me the most confused right now because you look at the strength of schedule, and I believe South Carolina's scheduling was like 8th in the nation, and the amount of top 25 teams that they had, one was like 4, and I think Alabama only had the one, which was Georgia.
No, Alabama. Well, the only one they beat, Alabama beat Georgia, obviously, but they lost to Vanderbilt. They were not ranked top 25 yet. They would get in there the week after that. They lost to number 11 Tennessee. They beat Missouri, beat the brakes off of Missouri, and they beat LSU, which started the LSU slide. LSU was number 15 at the time. It wasn't an awful schedule for Alabama, and the College Football Playoff Committee chairman, Manuel Ward, said that last night on ESPN. He was like, look, Alabama did more against more than Miami did, and that's why we put them there. And that's all well and good, but if that is the argument, then South Carolina's got to be in the back pocket of Alabama. You want to put Alabama ahead of South Carolina because they won the head-to-head. I'm fine with that. I can't push back against that. That is objectively reality what happened. But if the argument is Bama did more against more ranked teams to go ahead of Miami, well, so the hell did South Carolina, and they have the same record as Alabama and lost to them by 2 points. There is no world in which those 4 teams in that order, Dale, make any sense at all, which is why the conspiracy theories still float this morning.
I agree with you, and I think we need to get that sounder by Lonzo with the conspiracy. We need to start playing that all day today.
Dale, appreciate the phone call, brother. Thanks for checking in. You can get on the phone lines as well at 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. The renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. I want your calls, your reactions. What did you think after those rankings got dropped last night? South Carolina fans, do you feel you caught the shaft? Do you feel like this is fair? Do you think that they got it wrong? Do you understand why they seated you where they seated you? I'm looking specifically, Gamecock fans, from your reactions this morning. I do have some sound from Shane Beamer from yesterday that we will get to coming up in a little while. And I will remind you that as of right now, we are slated to be joined by Shane Beamer at the end, sometime middle to end of next week. We tried to get him on this week. National Signing Day coming up, obviously in the midst of the recruiting trail. He did go, I'm going to say this, he did go on Feinbaum yesterday. So I'm a little hurt, Shane. You had time for Paul Feinbaum, but not for Rob Brown. That's a little offensive.
Well, Feinbaum has a little bigger audience.
Oh, I thought you were going to say ears.
And he would, well, I didn't. I said little. I said little. His ears are a lot bigger. And maybe he was doing some last minute rallying.
He was. He absolutely was.
A politicking. For
the record,
yes.
I'm not actually mad at Shane Beamer. All right. Now I will say this. I mean, maybe Paul. Maybe Shane. Maybe if you had come on this show instead of Paul, maybe we could have put your plea in front of the right ears. I mean, who the hell's listening to that guy, right? Like, you could have come on our show. Maybe we would have got you in the right place. Either way, Shane-O is expected to join the show towards the end of next week. Once I get that day and time selected, I will let you know, and I will tell you that.
Well, we'll know everything by then, right? So
we will.
So we'll know what bowl they're going to.
No, I'm going to tell you. I was going to say, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to the playoffs. 0% chance.
Yeah.
There is no. Manuel Ward said yesterday on the show. In fact, we've got enough time. I'll go ahead and run this now. But he said yesterday on the. Actually, you know what? It's a long clip, so I'm going to save it for coming up in the next hour. But Manuel Ward, the CFB committee chair last night, said, basically, if you're not playing this weekend, you can't improve your seating. Reese Davis asked him directly and specifically. First, he tried to politic his way out of answering it. And the one thing that I applaud, I'm a big Reese Davis guy. I love Reese. I think Reese does a great job. But I also think Reese Davis is a company man. I think he totes the line. I will give him credit for one thing last night. And the one thing I'm going to give him credit for last night, is that Reese kind of pressed Manuel Ward on what about the teams that are right there on the bubble outside looking in? Is there any way for those rankings to change? And Manuel Ward was obligated to effectively say, no, if you're not playing for a conference championship game this year, you cannot get better. So if you are on the outside looking in, which is definitely South Carolina, is definitely Ole Miss, Effectively, the only two teams this has any implication on is Miami and Alabama. So the opposite side of that coin is what is going to matter, which is if you can't move by not competing in a conference championship game, how far down can a team that loses its conference championship game actually drop? And really, there's two teams that matters for: Boise State and SMU. If SMU, because Oregon's in the Big Ten championship game.
See, it matters for Clemson, because if Clemson loses, they're out.
Here's the thing: Clemson's already out unless they lose, right? Here's the reality. If Clemson gets in, it's because they won the ACC title, not because of their rank. They just got one of the auto bids, right? If SMU loses this game, they're not necessarily out.
If you can't move up, then that means you can't move out. That's the part that I don't get.
No.
So he said that you can't improve if you don't play.
Correct.
But he didn't say that you can't. It can't hurt you if you lose it, right?
He did not say that. That's my question, is if you're in the top 12, because if you're outside the top 12, of which there are three teams, four: Clemson, UNLV, Arizona State, and Iowa State. The two Big 12 teams, the Mountain West team that's not Boise State, and the ACC team that's not SMU. If Boise State loses the Mountain West, they're gone. There's no question in my mind. They will be out because they'll drop one spot behind Alabama for sure, maybe two behind Miami. SMU's the question from number 8. If they lose, and this is a question I've been asking you guys for like 4 weeks now, right? 4 weeks. I've been setting up this exact scenario without knowing it was going to directly impact one of the teams that we cover in Clemson. But if you're SMU and you're at number 8 and you lose this game to Clemson and you don't get the doors blown off, it's, 28, 27, 35, 34, something in that range. If it's a good game, close game, you lose by a point or two. Would they drop you behind Alabama? Because if the answer is no, SMU might be the 12th seed and Bama doesn't get in anyway. But if SMU loses to Clemson, close game, tight game, and they drop behind Alabama, I will become even more convicted that the goal was to get Bama in, no matter what it takes. It's the biggest brand. Whether it stays this way or not is irrelevant. Right now, today, the Alabama Crimson Tide are the biggest brand in college football. Despite the last 2 years, they're the biggest brand in college football. And if SMU loses this game and drops behind them, you can go, wait a minute, Rob, ACC champ, not that impressive. ACC champ, who cares? Okay, but the last game that they lost was to a top 17 team in a neutral site in an ACC championship game that they didn't have to play in. So if they lose that and drop behind Bama, who is 9-3 and did not make a conference championship game, I would make the argument that at that point, you could very clearly say the goal was to get Bama in. If they get the doors blown off of them, different story. But he said, you can't improve if you're not playing in a conference championship game. That's not the question I have. The question I have is, how far can you drop by competing in and losing your conference championship game? That is maybe the most interesting thing to come out of these conference championship games this weekend, and we will talk more about that. Next segment, Water Cooler Cheat Sheet. Rob Inario joins us at 7:20 to tell you about the Elio Santa Toy Drive that we've got firing up tomorrow and Friday down at the Well. Denton Day of Sirius XM's College Football Channel at 7:40. Lonzo wowing you with a sports flash now.
Much quieter. I mean,
what?
Dude, last night an unranked Clemson men's basketball team upset number 4 Kentucky 70-66, earning the ACC's lone victory so far in the ACC SEC Challenge. The Tigers had 4 scorers in double digits, led by Jaden Zachary with 13, Chauncey Wiggins with 12, and Ian Shefflin with 11. The Gamecock men's basketball team knocked off Boston College 73-51 last night also on the road, improving to 5-3 on the year. Colin Murray Boyles had 16 points and 14 boards to lead the team in both categories, while Nick Pringle added 11 points. Tune in tonight, 6:30, as the Furman Paladins take on the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. It's Florida versus CU, right here on your home for Furman Paladins basketball. The Fan, upstate. So loud.
From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on the Fan Upstate. Ready to find your home field advantage? At Founders Federal Credit Union, we offer our members competitive rates to tackle buying a dream home with ease. Our team will coach you through every step. Plus, we never charge private mortgage insurance. Don't fumble your chance at home ownership. Start your journey with Founders. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage today. Terms and conditions apply. Membership qualification required. Equal housing lender. Institution and MLS identifier number 410646.
Open enrollment is going on now. Don't be frustrated by having to choose your health plan on your own. South Carolina Blue is here for you. Located on Woodruff Road right here in Greenville, Casey and his team of licensed health insurance experts can help you find a health plan for 2025 that fits you and your budget. Time is running out to secure your coverage for January 1st. Schedule your no-cost appointment today at scbluehereforyou.com. No upstate child should have Christmas without presents under the tree. Donate a toy during the LEO Santa Toy Drive. Stop by the Bon Secours Wellness Arena in downtown Greenville all day this Thursday through 10 a.m. Friday. Our friends from Greenville County Law Enforcement will be on hand accepting toys and donations. Plus, see special demonstrations from tactics teams and K-9 patrol units. Help an underprivileged child this Christmas. For more, go to leosantachristmas.com. LEO Santa, presented by Rob Binario Law.
Can you smell it? That smoky, salty, delicious aroma of bacon. The 5th annual Bourbon and Bacon Fest is back. Friday, January 17th at the Foundry at Simpson Mill in downtown Greenville. With over 100 delicious bourbons and bacon-themed bites from your favorite restaurants. Bourbon and Bacon Fest. Benefits Carolina. Tactic call by VIP GA.
All right, let's see here.
Texting the word bacon to 72341 or visit bourbonandbaconfest.com.
It's hard. It's getting hard to watch because of this committee. I hope Bama gets right. Look, Alabama can still not get in. If you want Alabama out just out of spite, you are big Clemson and UNLV fans this weekend. Those two winning would essentially knock Alabama out. ChatGPT currently writing my death threats to the committee. Would ChatGPT allow you to write a death threat? Can we all agree that the committee has lost their damn minds with these rankings that came out last night? Again, like, it depends on what you're upset about. Like, the 11, 12, 13, 14 really bothers me. And I would go so far as to say this would bother me even if it wasn't South Carolina, right? Like, this bothers me. Because I have wanted to understand the logic and rationale behind the committee's rankings for years, and it seems like it's just impossible to do so without them explaining it. And every time we get somebody from the committee talking, they come across as a politician, which, again, I understand. Anybody who is trying to justify their own existence and paycheck is going to sound like a politician. If you ask me why people should give me money to talk about football, I'm going to sound like a politician. I'm going to talk about happiness and impact on the community and all those things that politicians say. This is why I've said a camera and a mic in the committee meeting room is the best thing that they could do. Is Miami in if Clemson loses? Not necessarily. If only Clemson loses, then Alabama would go in ahead of Miami. Because I think if Clemson loses, SMU keeps their spot. If Boise State wins, Boise State keeps their spot, and there'll only be one spot. We'll see.
Good morning. Hey, Big Daddy, how you doing?
And away we go. Our numero dos of the Rob Brown Show goes now. Coming up in this hour of the show, very, very busy in the 7 o'clock hour. We are going to hit our water cooler cheat sheet here in just mere moments from right now. At 7:20, Rob Binario is going to jump on board once again, sponsor of the LEO Santa Toy Drive that kicks off tomorrow, an incredible event that is put on every year to help give Christmas to some underprivileged kids across the upstate. And on top of that, Rob's just a hilarious dude. So we'll have Rob Onario coming up at 7:20. And then when we're done with that, Denton Day, the host of Sirius XM's College Football Overtime, is going to join the show. We'll get his reaction to last night's playoff rankings release as well. I imagine Denton's going to have a lot of the same takes that I have, but we will find out and we will see what it is that he felt a grievance over last night, coming up at 7:40. At 8:40, Kyle Mountain, the head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits, is going to join us on the show. We'll talk a little rabbit hockey with him as the boys are back in town this weekend, a Friday and Saturday nighter at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena for the Upstate's local hockey team. We'll talk to Kyle Mountain at 8:40, and around those segments, the show belongs to you. 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. That's the number for the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. You can text us at 71307, 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N, and we will read those on the air. You can tweet me at The Rob Brown Show. You can tweet Lonzo at Lonzo on Word. Hit up everybody at The Fan Upstate. My social media handle across Instagram, TikTok as well, at The Rob Brown Show. Give me a follow there. Couple of texts that you guys sent in during the break there. Texter said, Rob, it's always the goal to get Bama in. I point to the 2007 and 2011 for reference. I would point to 2023 as well. I would point to literally last year. Again, I know a lot of you bought into the, well, Florida State's quarterback is down narrative that was sold to you. I ran it and raved, and a lot of you said, oh, you're just a Florida boy being butthurt about a Florida team getting left out. I said, look, I don't care. I don't care about it being Florida State specifically. What I care about is the fact that this feels like a ploy to fit Bama in so that you don't have a playoffs without the SEC. And I said, the reason I'm mad about it is because this is going to be the precedent. And this being the precedent is going to impact some of you. And here we are literally a year later. And it literally happened the next year. South Carolina being impacted by that theory, if you believe that that theory is taking place. Texter said, Rob, they were behind us and we beat Clemson, and explain Clemson jumping 4 spots after beating Citadel, but Gamecocks only 1 spot for beating Clemson. Here's the problem. And I understand it. I get it. Clemson beats the Citadel. They rock it up. You guys go on the road, meet Clemson. You move up a single spot. The answer is it's a lot more dense at the top. The rankings are a lot more dense at the top. How do you justify? Now, Miami, I can justify putting South Carolina ahead of Miami. I can justify that. I'm not saying I think it's the right thing to do. I'm saying I can justify it. But how do you justify putting a 3-loss football team ahead of Boise State, who is 11-1, who is in and likely to win the Mountain West Conference Championship, who lost to the number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks by 3 points, the second closest loss that Oregon had all year, the first being Ohio State? How do you justify a 3-loss team jumping Boise State when they are blowing everybody's doors off, with the exception of the second best team in the Mountain West, UNLV, who they play again this weekend, in Oregon? How do I justify a 3-loss SEC team over an 11-1 Indiana? Strength of schedule matters, but it is one of the things that matters, not the only thing that matters. I think what a lot of us do, is we pick the metric that we think makes the best argument for our team, and then we go off on that being the metric that we think is most important, right? Strength of schedule is what the Gamecocks are harping on right now. And you should. You had one of the best in the country. I think it was number 8 this year. Honestly, I think it was closer to 4 or 5, but that's just me. If South Carolina's your team, you absolutely think strength of schedule is the most important metric. If Ole Miss is your team, you're making the argument that head-to-head is more important of a metric. Why? Because you beat South Carolina head-to-head, and that's the team you're competing for that spot with. If you are Alabama, you're probably going with a mix of the two. It just depends on what team you are. So strength of schedule being a metric, I would say, do I think South Carolina beats Indiana? Does South Carolina beat Indiana if they play this weekend neutral site, Lonzo?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. But they also just put 63 up on a weak opponent, right? 63. So I think that matters. Can I put them ahead of 11-1 SMU? whose only loss was to a then top 10 BYU team. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, the top is more dense. There's more fluidity in where you can move from, 14 down to 25. But let's keep it a buck. A lot of that's because it doesn't matter down there. Being 16 or being 36 is irrelevant. It doesn't change other than your bowl destination, which who cares anymore? It doesn't really impact your postseason future. It impacts it when you're talking 13 and up. Now you're talking playoffs or not. That's why there's so much more. We'll come to some more of your text here in just a little while from now, but it is 7:06 in the morning. You are 53 and some change away from getting into work. You're going to talk sports. You got to know what's going on. That's why we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying,
I'm not going to play with it anymore.
Yes, stop it.
Or they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go.
Welcome to the Water Cooler Cheat Sheet on the Fan Upstate.
Water Cooler Cheat Sheet, top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office and start talking sports this AM. We got you covered. Let's dive right in with item number 1. Not an enormous surprise here that the Oregon Ducks top your college football rankings. Not a surprise that Texas is number 2. Not much of a surprise that Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia round out the top 5. It is after that where controversy started to kick in amongst college football fans. The Buckeyes of Ohio State lose to an unranked Michigan team and score only 10 points in the process at the crib, but they fall down 4 spots only to number 6, which you will keep in mind puts them in line to play a home playoff game. And what's even more interesting than that is that it puts them in line to play a home playoff game if nothing changes in the bracket, which is unlikely. But if nothing changes in the bracket, the Tennessee Volunteers would be coming up to play Ohio State in Columbus. Now, it's cold in Tennessee in December. I'm not arguing. But I think, and Lonzo was more equipped to answer this question than me, Tennessee cold's a little different than Columbus cold in the midst of December.
Well, Rob, Tennessee has mountains. So it's Tennessee, you're not going to get an advantage with the cold.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
You're not.
That's, again,
I've been in Tennessee in winter, and it's just as cold as it is.
Okay,
Ohio.
good.
Yeah.
Good for Tennessee. I mean, maybe that doesn't make much of an impact. We'll see. But there's also the possibility that any other team, it could be SMU that ends up in that spot. Actually, it's not, because if they win, they get a bye. But it could be Boise State that ends up on the road at Columbus. Again, maybe not that much of an impact. We'll see. Either way, playing in Columbus, even if the Buckeye fans are a little sadsies about the loss to Michigan, Columbus is still a tough place to go win a football game. Whether it's cold or the middle of August, it doesn't matter. We'll see. Ohio State drops down to number 4. Rounding out the top 10, Tennessee, not in the SEC championship game. SMU, in the ACC championship game. 11-1 Indiana is up 1 spot to number 9. A lot of folks saying they don't deserve to be there because of the schedule they play being as weak as it was. Although they blew everybody's doors off with a couple of rare exceptions, lost the only big ranked game they played against Ohio State. Boise State, number 10. Alabama slides in at number 11. Here's where the controversy starts. Bama, number 11, 1 spot ahead of number 12, Miami, who is 10-2 out of the ACC, but did not really play a tough schedule either. And Miami is ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina. This is the spot that there's the most controversy for me. And like I told Lonzo a few days ago when he said, we'll be talking about it this way with this much intensity. If it was a 14 playoff, the answer is yeah. But we talk about 3 and 4. We are talking about 11 and 12, and it just happens to be that one of the teams from this area is in that discussion. Arizona State, Iowa State, Clemson at 17, BYU, Mizzou, and UNLV wrap up your top 20. The bottom 20 of the bottom 5 of the top 25 is Illinois, Syracuse, Colorado, Army, and Memphis. Let's get to item number 2. The biggest domino remaining in the MLB free agency period, and the domino that I think will kick off what is going to be the hottest portion of the hot stove portion of the Major League calendar. Juan Soto is expected to sign with his next team or re-sign with his current team coming up by the end of this week. That is according to Alden Gonzalez of ESPN. He reports that Juan Soto's free agency is nearing its final stages and that the star outfielder could pick his destination by the end of the week. There are 5 teams that are courting Juan Soto right now. Obviously, the New York Yankees are one of them. Their crosstown rival, the New York Mets, are one of them. We know that team does not have an issue handing out money. The Toronto Blue Jays are one of those teams. Toronto, not known for spending a ton of money, but are willing to go sign some superstars. Is Juan Soto one? Boston Red Sox, LA Dodgers are the other 2 teams in the mix right now, though the Dodgers, I think, are more feeling it out than they are actual contenders. I think they're more getting prepared. Because once Juan Soto signs, he's going to reset the market. Why? Because Juan Soto, at 26 years old, is expected to get a contract that is bigger than Shohei Ohtani's contract. Ohtani signed a 10-year, $700 million deal with the LA Dodgers that deferred more than 95% of Ohtani's contract to down the line. If Juan Soto is willing to accept a deferment like Shohei Ohtani did, then his contract could eclipse the $700 million mark. We are at a point, ladies and gentlemen, where I am comfortable saying the first billionaire American athlete's going to be a baseball player, because baseball teams have figured out how to wriggle around. They have figured out how to utilize deferments to their advantage. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to have $1 billion salary roll, but a lot of it is going to be deferred for dozens of years down the line. Juan Soto expected to make more than Shohei Ohtani. We'll keep an eye on that. Let's get to item number 3. The field for the NBA Cup knockout round is set, and we are now guaranteed a new champion. The LA Lakers were eliminated from advancing to the knockout rounds with losses to the Suns and Thunder next week. There were still spaces that were available in the field of 8. The dust is settled, and the 8 teams are now locked in. Out of the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks, New York Knicks, Atlanta Hawks, and Orlando Magic are in. Out of the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, Golden State Warriors, and Dallas Mavericks are all in. Going into last night, there was still a lot up for grabs. The Hawks, Rockets, and Warriors were the 3 teams locked into the quarterfinals entering last night. The other 5 spots were available and up for grabs, including 2 games in the East, the Magic at the Knicks and the Bucks at the Pistons. But the drama did not last long. The Knicks and Bucks both raced out to massive halftime leads and cruised to dubs on the back end. Whether the Knicks could possibly knock out Orlando, which had a 60-point differential entering play Tuesday out of the quarterfinals, well, that ended with a blowout victory. It ultimately did not matter. The Knicks did at one point lead by as many as 37, which was the amount the Knicks needed to knock out the Magic and allow the Celtics to reach the quarterfinals in the wild card instead. But Orlando eventually fought back to make it a little bit more respectable 121-106 Knicks victory, and that did allow Orlando to fight their way in and lock up that last spot. So the NBA Cup knockout round live from Las Vegas, Nevada is now officially set. There you go. Your water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories that you need to know. Coming up on the show, Rob Anario is going to join us in the next segment. We will talk a little bit about the LEO Santa toy drive that is coming up starting tomorrow. Then we will wrap up the hour with Denton Day, Sirius XM's college football overtime host. We'll get his thoughts on last night's ranking. In the 8 o'clock hour, the audio blitz, a fun little Twitter debate. A couple of major college athletic directors are duking it out on Twitter. We'll get to that coming up. We've got a major name entering the transfer portal that could start a chain. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits at 8:40. All that coming up on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate.
QC.
All right, guys, quick live. We're back with Rob Anario after this. Stay there. It's Rob Brown. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not, I don't know why you're here, but I am glad that you are. Hey, do us a favor. Whether you're enjoying it or not, would you mind sharing us around your social media, please? And thank you, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I don't care. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it doesn't matter to me. Help us get the good word out. We're trying to get famous and rich, and we can't do it without your help. So, The Rob Brown Show is on all social media, or share the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, wherever you're watching this, and we'd appreciate it very much. Now, let's get back to the show. Stick around.
Yeah!
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 Yeah! Rocking and rolling, 721 of the AM. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It's the fan upstate, Rob, the great one, Lonzo, with you. And if there's anything better than one Rob at 721 in your mornings, it's two Robs at 721 in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the other Rob, well, that's me. The primary Rob in this segment, as we get set for the Elio Santa Toy Drive taking place at the Bon Score Wellness Arena. That starts tomorrow morning at the same time as this show, 6 a.m. o'clock. My man, Rob Inario, joins us here on the show to run us down what's happening. Rob, what's up, big dog?
Oh, just getting ready to kick off a wonderful holiday season and possibly a season of frustration at the NCAA playoffs.
I mean, come on, Rob. You watched that last night and thought, what a lovely set of perfectly made decisions by the committee, didn't you?
Well, I deal with people that make questionable decisions under the influence of various substances, and I would love to know what they were passing around.
It was something, Rob. I'm glad you brought this up. Let me give you my number one take, and then I want your biggest takeaway from last night. It makes no sense to me when we talk about Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, three teams that are all very close to each other in terms of performance, in terms of the eye test. The argument is, yeah, South Carolina's playing the best football of those three teams at the end of the year, but they did lose a head-to-head to both of them. I'm fine, honestly, with whether you stack it Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, or South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss. What I'm not fine with is how did you manage to drop Miami in between Alabama and then Ole Miss and South Carolina? It doesn't make any sense to me at all, which has been my problem, Rob. This committee for the last handful of years has made these decisions that you go, I'm fine with whatever subjective measurement you went to arrive there, but make it consistent and make it known. And like a wonderful politician, they avoid ever actually doing that. That was my biggest gripe from last night. What did you take away from it?
I didn't get to watch it last night. I saw all the fallout. I was preparing for the toy drive, but as a suffering lifelong Gamecock fan who was present at the university for 21 consecutive football losses, it's the chicken curse. It's the curse of being in the SEC, where we might be one of the top teams in the nation one year, but we can't even get out of the SEC East due to the national champion coming out of the SEC. So all I can figure is they're trying to spread the love and figure, well, Gamecocks fans are loyal and stand by no matter what, so we won't piss too many of them off.
I look at this, and I've said, Rob, for years, and I pointed this out last year when Alabama jumped Florida State. I said, look, I'm really mad about this. And a lot of people said, well, of course you are, Rob. You're from Florida. You covered Florida State for a long time, which is true. But I said at the time, I'm not mad that it's Florida State. I'd be mad if this was any team. The reason I'm upset is because the precedent has now been set that if you can find any excuse to do it, it feels like this is a way to shove Alabama into these playoffs. And that is going to cost more teams down the line. A, I still think I was right. And B, here we are 1 year later, and not only did it happen, but it happened to a team that represents half of the listening audience right now. Now, all of a sudden, those same Gamecock fans that were telling me I was just butthurt last year because I was a Florida kid who was upset that a Florida team got the shaft, now all of a sudden, they got the same problem as I do, Rob Inario, and I find that, I don't know, oddly comforting.
Well, it is definitely odd. I'll say that. Comforting for you, but yeah, being a South Carolina boy, I'm used to it.
Welcome to the club, bud. Welcome to the club. Robin Area joining us here on the show as we get set for something that we did bring him on to talk about as much as we could, and we'll talk football for another 2.5 hours after this. The LEO Santa Toy Drive firing up tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., going all through the night, all the way until Friday morning. Rob, this is an incredible event that you guys do every single year. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of it of just a minute, but tell us a little bit about the event.
This is a wonderful charity I'm thrilled to be a part of. So several years ago, a Greenville County deputy used to fill the trunk of his squad car with toys around Christmas season whenever he had to go to a domestic disturbance or some sort of unsettling situation. And if he saw a kid and noticed there wasn't presents under the tree, he'd let him pick out something out of his cop car. And that turned into a tradition for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. And then a few years ago, I believe it was the Hallmark Channel did a story on it. Donations started flooding in, and really quickly the sheriff said it needed to be organized. So we have formed Leo Santa, or LEO Santa, Law Enforcement Officer. Probably should be called First Responder Santa because we have a lot of firemen involved as well, and EMTs and professionals from all over. And it's a wonderful event where for 28 hours, I will be there the whole time, awake, freezing, warmed by the joy of you bringing toys. And I've done this event for a while. I've done a similar event with another charity. And the toy collection part of it is fantastic. But what really stands out to me about this is the delivery day. These officers will load up their squad cars. We load up the fire trucks, the SWAT trucks, the mobile command center. We roll into neighborhoods, lights and sirens flashing. After a few minutes, people start coming out, and we give toys to kids. And watching the officers get to have a positive interaction with the child, with a family, where they're not there to take mama to jail or take daddy to jail or call in DSS, but watching them get to have a positive impact in the lives of these children, I think it does just as much for the officers as it does the kids.
I have no doubt. I mean, it's an incredible event, and I know for folks in positions like law enforcement officers and first responders who are unfortunately regularly brought to traumatic situations involving kids, the ability to give back, not just that it is Christmas, but just the ability to give back to these kids who are frequently caught unfortunately in traumatic situations that they have absolutely no blame for outside of they just happen to be in the wrong spot to the wrong people at the wrong time. Even if you can just give them one day where they can sit back and enjoy and be a kid for a minute, that seems like a pretty fantastic cause.
It is. Last year, we collected 15,000 toys, which sounds amazing. And when you look at a room full of toys, it is amazing. And then it becomes kind of sad at how quickly those toys go out and how many neighborhoods don't get reached. We try to give roughly 3 toys per child. So we helped 5,000 kids last year. And again, that sounds like an impressive number, and it is. I don't want to minimize any of the good that this charity has done, but there's so many more that still need help. And even if we could reach every child in need in Greenville County, 5,000 more toys would be 1 more toy per child. So, and that's not even reaching every child in Greenville County. So we really appreciate the support of all of you listeners. We're looking for toys for all ages, but given this is a sports show, I think a lot of your fans are sports minded. So basketballs, footballs, soccer balls, any type of sports kit, skateboards, those are fun. Helmets, always needed if you get skateboards or bikes. But I would encourage all of your listeners to try to find a sports related toy and then bring it by anytime from 6 a.m. tomorrow to 10 a.m. on Friday. And we'll get it in the hands of a child in this area. And if all of you business listeners are out there, if you want to bring in a truckload of toys, and we've had several businesses will fill up a pickup truck or a box truck, is a wonderful promotional activity. Great shots for social media. You can get a little bit of a bonus to your business out of it in terms of exposure while helping out the local community. a win-win for everyone.
It really is. Rob Inario joining us here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. The Leo Santa Toy Drive starting at tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., running through 10 a.m. on Friday. Rob and Greenville County law enforcement and first responders will be on hand accepting toys and donations. They will have the tactics teams out there, the canine patrol units out there to help underprivileged kids this Christmas. Rob, an incredible event. Before we let you go, if you don't mind, just run everybody down on all the details. If they maybe can't make it out to the well, but they want to pitch in, et cetera, where can they find everybody at?
A lot of your Greenville County fire departments have drop boxes for toys. We'll be at the steps of the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. It's going to be tough to miss. There's going to be a lot of flashing lights. 4 to 8 p.m. we're going to have pictures with Santa and try to have some kids activities. We had the DUI demonstration last year with pedal cars and drunk goggles. That was fun. I'm undefeated against Stone Man in the drunk driving challenge.
Like that.
We'll probably have that again. You'll see the bomb squads, the K9s. You're going to see a lot of activity at the arena. If you have time for a toy, great. We would love to get a toy. If you don't have time for a toy, pull through the box office and somebody will happily take a monetary donation. If you don't have time for that, Leo Santa Toy Drive is the website. And we should have a link up there so we can do online giving as well. If not, we should have that any moment now. It's supposed to be going online soon if it hasn't already. So leosantatoydrive.com will have the information about the charity. But if you're driving through downtown Greenville anytime from 6 a.m. tomorrow to 10 a.m. on Friday, you're going to see a massive police presence, and all you have to do is stop, and we'll tell you how you can help us best.
Rob Inario, my man, listen, I know you're going to be out there for, 28 consecutive hours. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, bud, but they got a sale on gloves on Amazon right now, and I think they do overnight delivery.
My lovely wife has bought me the heated jacket, heated gloves, heated socks, and heated beanie. So I should be at least mildly frozen.
I mean, if not, bud,
cold tomorrow night.
If not, bud, just think about where the Gamecocks got ranked in the playoff committee. That ought to heat you right back up.
Yeah. And I'll have to say that one of the greatest joys of this as a criminal defense lawyer is standing around 2 a.m. telling war stories with cops. And it's actually really improved my relationship with local law enforcement. And I've gotten some cases worked out by standing around 2 o'clock in the morning talking to cops as they swing by while dropping off somebody at the jail.
See?
So it's
it benefits everybody.
And it does. And again, this is about the kids, but this is your chance to help the children and help local first responders have a better Christmas. So I encourage everyone to come out and do a wonderful thing for us.
As do we. Rob Inario joining us here on the show. You can learn more by going to leosantachristmas.com or just listen, pick up a toy, grab some cash, throw it in an envelope, head on down to the well, hand it to Rob personally. Rob, great to have you, buddy. Thanks as well. Good luck for this event, and we'll talk to you down the road, pal.
All right, thanks, Rob. Take care.
You got it. Rob Inario helping with the Leo Santa Toy Drive. Kicks off tomorrow, 6 a.m. at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. Stop by, bring an unopened toy or just an envelope full of cash. Help out the underprivileged kids of the upstate. When we come back, Denton Day is the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. We'll ask him about his thoughts on the playoff rankings. If you have a question you'd like asked of Denton Day, text it, 71307, 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N. We will ask Denton a couple of fan questions, as well as get his thoughts on where the Carolina Gamecocks are ranked, all coming up on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
I'm trying to figure out if that's a reflection or if Chris's car is on fire.
Guys, I'm going to step away both to get Denton set up and find out if Chris's car is on fire. Be right back. It's Rob Brown. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not, I don't know why you're here, but I am glad that you are. Hey, do us a favor. Whether you're enjoying it or not, would you mind sharing this around your social media, please? And thank you, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I don't care. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it doesn't matter to me. Help us get the good word out. We're trying to get famous and rich, and we can't do it without your help. So, The Rob Brown Show is on all social media, or share the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, wherever you're watching this, and we'd appreciate it very much. Now, let's get back to the show. Stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Rob Brown Show is on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob, the great one, Lonzo, with you. And we are now absolutely thrilled, elated, ecstatic even, to be joined by a young man we talk to every week at this time to get his thoughts on the landscape of college football. He is the host of Sirius XM's College Football Overtime. Joins us every Wednesday at this time. My dog, Denton Day, joins the program. What's up, big fella?
I'm good, man. I don't know if I should address you as Rob Brown or Tony Stark, but you look handsome today.
Thanks, buddy. I mean, I look handsome every day. I just look handsomer today.
With the Tony Stark glasses.
We haven't figured out why he just suddenly started wearing sunglasses. And the more people mention it, he's going to keep wearing them.
For the record, Denton just jumped on and said I looked very handsome today. That's why.
Ask him how many pairs he has.
How many pairs do you have?
5 of them. I'm working on 6 and 7 when they release the new colors.
I was about to say, so they better be all different colors. If you had 5 just blues, I feel like that would be weird. But if they're different colors, I can get with that.
So far, blue, black, red, yellow, orange. I'm waiting on purple to drop. When the purple ones drop, those will be in the mail real damn quick, Denton Day.
Get some green shade on there as well.
When they drop green, those will be in the mail real quick. Listen, I got too many jerseys. Look at that. I got too many personalized jerseys, Denton Day, not to have the color match sunglasses to everyone.
Can you name drop yourself? Because that's what you're doing. You're name drop. You're turning around so people can see your name on the back.
Denton Day, am I wrong? Isn't publicity the name of our game?
That is true. That is true. I actually like that jersey a lot too.
Isn't it dope? Look at that. Local hockey team, buddy. Greenville SwampRabbits. Can't touch it. It's untouchable. Name on the jersey. Man, you can't beat it. Let's talk some football, big dog. I want to start with this. I have my biggest grievance. My biggest grievance right now is that Miami's wedged in between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. And it's not that I think Miami should be ahead of Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina should be behind them. It's that, to me, I can't come up with the logical reason that Miami is behind Alabama, but ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina, 3 teams that we've been fighting over. How should they be separated from themselves? It doesn't make sense that Miami isn't above all 3 or below all 3, whichever one you want to pick. And it leads to, whether it is correct or not, Denton Day, more fuel on the fire of the conspiracy theory that the committee's goal is to get the big brands, specifically Alabama, into these playoffs. Are you joining me on that ledge, talking me off of it, or kicking me off of it like Leonidas in 300?
I'm probably pulling you back onto the ledge. Miami shouldn't be ranked above them. Miami with 2 losses is not a good football team. Outside of the fact that they have been ranked for the entirety of the season because you had to rank an ACC team high, and because they had a guy that we thought was going to be a Heisman contender, and Cam Ward still might get to New York, they have no quality wins. I mean, if you can pull up their schedule right now and tell me what their best win is, please do, because I don't think there's a single win on there that I would say this is a great win for a football team that wants to be in the college football playoff. I mean, you're looking at like Louisville. And like, can you imagine saying that Louisville is your best win and then saying we should be in? No, you blew a 21-0 lead against Syracuse. Like, I know you were on the road, but you can't be blown a 21-0 lead and still be in this conversation. So I was stunned that they were where they were. I think they should have been beneath all of them. I think they should have been beneath Arizona State, because at the very least, while Arizona State doesn't have Cam Ward, they have wins that are way better than any win that Miami has.
The issue for me, Denton, isn't whether or not you think Miami should be above the 3, behind the 3, further behind the 3. The issue to me is, what is it that separates Alabama and Ole Miss to drop Miami in there? Or what is it about Miami that justifies dropping them in between? What makes them worse than Alabama and better than Ole Miss is the question mark for me. And the fact that here we are, yes, we're multiple years into the college football playoff selection committee with a 4-team. This is a new model. It's a new format. It's a new way of thinking about the playoffs. That's all well and good. My question is, why was that decision? And they sent Manuel Ward on to ESPN last night, and he got asked why Alabama, Miami. None of them said why Alabama, Miami, then Ole Miss and South Carolina. And I cannot, as big brain smart boy as I am, Denton Day, I can't come up with an answer to that question, which, again, just fuels the conspiracy theory, in my opinion.
The answer would be that they've had them ranked highly the entire year. Is that a justifiable answer? Probably not, but that would be the answer because they have thought so highly of Miami throughout the course of the season that they would still find a way to wedge them in between. I don't think they should be wedged between Bama and Ole Miss because I think Ole Miss should be in over Bama, but we know the reason that Alabama is in over Ole Miss. And you can argue strength of schedule and all these different things, but the reason is because they're Alabama. They scored 3 points 2 weeks ago against Oklahoma. A team that is known for their offense scored 3 points, and they're still somehow in the college football playoff discussion. It's baffling. It's because they love the brand, and Alabama is going to draw eyes. And you can justify it with now that there's 12, say, well, we just put them in there. We're going to get some eyes on the first weekend and keep it moving. You couldn't squeeze Alabama in if there was 14, obviously, but because there's 12, you can kind of be a little weird and eye testy, if you will, which again, they don't pass the eye test because they scored 3 points 2 weeks ago. Ole Miss should be in. And if it wasn't Ole Miss, it should have been South Carolina. I was stunned. I know we'll get to this, so I apologize for my hijacking here. I thought that with the inception of the 12-team playoff and having more spots to play around with, you would really incentivize teams that as the season progressed, got significantly better. And there's no team in college football that is a better example of that than South Carolina. They lose games early in the season. I mean, we've talked about that Bama game. I mean, if that pass is like 2 feet lower, they go to overtime, and then who knows what happens in overtime. But the way they have gotten better and progressed throughout the course of the season, I take them over Miami right now. I take them over Bama right now. Bama has been figured out. If you force Jalen Milroe to throw and take away his ability with his legs, you're going to beat them. You're going to beat them. He's not a great, consistent thrower of the football yet. He could get there, certainly. It's why you play college ball. It's not fair to expect everyone to be great immediately. But right now, he is not that. They showed us that with the Oklahoma game, but then because they beat a lousy Auburn team, all of a sudden they're back in the good graces of the committee. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think that's what most South Carolina fans are upset about is the fact that Alabama beat at home a 5-win Auburn team versus South Carolina, who ended the year by going on the road and beating a top 12 Clemson team, a team that, by the way, is still very much alive for a playoff spot, obviously beating SMU in the ACC title game. I'll be at that game Saturday night. And they jumped up a single spot, and not just a single spot, but stay behind Ole Miss, who lost to a Florida team that, I will give them, looked a hell of a lot better at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year, but still a 7-5 Florida team, and behind a now Miami team that, as you pointed out a minute ago, have no quality wins, played not just against an ACC that is not a good conference, but didn't really play any of the top dogs in the ACC outside of Louisville. The gripe, I think, for South Carolina fans is justified, which is why I've said for a while, the one thing I want out of this committee is a damn camera and a microphone in that room so that what is happening is crystal clear. Because I think bunking in behind some hotel ballroom walls and saying this is what we decided, but we're not going to tell any of you why we decided it, is just objectively bad for college football. The only thing it is good for, Denton Day, is college football playoff television rankings, which at this point, I'm convinced are their number one metric for lining up these teams the way that they do.
What's crazy, because if you put a camera inside that room, the ratings would be way better. With all due respect to the guys on the panel, and I like a lot of those guys, but the ratings would be way better if you put a camera in that room and you got to hear these guys discuss. And I think the reason that I'm with you on that one, I just want to know the process. If you come to a decision, I don't mind that they kept Florida State out last year because their quarterback got hurt. Does it suck that they were unbeaten? Sure, but I can understand the logic behind that decision. It's these decisions where I want to know the logic that I feel like as a fan and as a supporter of this sport, we are owed at least a little explanation as to what decision was made and why that decision was made. You don't have to give us every single detail, who voted which way, who was really on the fence for which team, but I need something that's more than Ward Manuel sitting there getting peppered with questions, doing his best to dodge them, because that's really all that he does. I love that they have attempted to put him on camera, and then he does like a teleconference after, but he really just dodges a lot of the questions. I just want a little bit of clarity as to why they view certain teams the way that they do. And if we disagree on that, then we can disagree on that. That's fine. That kind of drives this thing anyway, right? But just the clarity is something that's very much missing.
Denton Day is the host of Sirius XM's College Football Overtime. Joins us every Wednesday at 7:40 to talk college football with us here on the show. Listen, we've butted heads before. I think you and I did it on BetQL at one point, the Florida State Alabama thing from last year. And I've made the argument that, all right, I get it. Their quarterback's down. They're not going to be the same offense, despite the fact that they went to the University of Florida and won a game. The fact that they still won a Power 5 conference championship game without the quarterback. What we are saying at that point, to me, this is just my subjective opinion, we can fight about it again, is the body of work doesn't matter. How we view you at the conclusion of the regular season is what matters. And to me, I don't like that. I do think the full resume, the full body of work from week 1 to the end of the season should be as much considered, if not more, than how we view you at the end of the season. Obviously, your overall record is the metric that is your body of work. Obviously, strength of schedule gets factored in. But I feel like teams who earn it from start to finish, not just, and this is the argument against South Carolina, so that we're clear, not just teams who get hot at the end, but teams that are good from start to finish should be considered. I don't really feel like Alabama is that way. I think that is another part of the reason that this has got me kind of spinning right now.
This year they're not. I mean, I would have put Ole Miss in. As annoying as Lane Kiffin was on Twitter, I hate the pandering on Twitter. Like, you had opportunities to win games, you didn't win games. But I thought Ole Miss deserved it over Alabama. If you look at some of the teams that they played, that they both played and who beat them, I thought Ole Miss was a better team. I thought they were playing better at the end of the year than Alabama was. Somehow Alabama doesn't have either. Like if you and I want to argue about full body of work versus who is playing the best at the end of the season, Alabama fits into neither of those. Like, they really don't. They were in this third category of, have you seen our logo? Do you know what Nick Saban did here for a long period of time? We got a star quarterback. Have you heard of him? That's where they fit in, because they don't have a great body of work, and they're not playing their best football at the end of the year.
Denton Day joining us here on the show. All I'm hearing right now is what I've been saying for a year now. Brand is one of the biggest metrics available to you. Mm-hmm. Is being confirmed. All right, what else, if anything, about these rankings popped off the sheet at you last night, Denton Day? Was there anything else that really stood out? I mean, it is interesting that we talk about Alabama and their ranking over Miami, whatever. There's a path where it doesn't matter, where nobody from that group is getting in, depending on what happens in the Big 12 championship game, the Mountain West championship game, the ACC title game. There's a chance none of those teams get in. That was probably the next thing that jumped off the sheet at me. What was it for you?
I'm confused as to why they don't love Arizona State. I thought they would be infatuated with this Arizona State story, because they're beating pretty decent teams. I mean, Arizona's not that good, but they beat pretty decent teams down the stretch, and they still don't seem to respect them a ton. I mean, the biggest thing is kind of what you alluded to. What happens if Clemson beats SMU? Does SMU fall out of the college football playoff in favor of Alabama? Because the way that Alabama is placed right now, when, again, we talk about Ward Manuel dodging questions, that was one of the ones that he dodged, where we would have another data point for SMU to then judge them by. I'm like, wait a second. I thought we were going to be in a position to where you were going to highly value the conference championships and getting to play that extra game versus not. Because if that's the case, why would SMU show up? If they could potentially lose their spot by losing to Clemson for a team that didn't have to play this weekend and a team that has 3 losses and, by the way, scored 3 points 2 weeks ago, why would they even bother showing up to the ACC championship game if they have aspirations of getting into the college football playoff? So I was stunned with the way that they don't seem to respect the Big 12, and I was stunned with the door that they left open to potentially knock one of the ACC teams out in favor of Alabama.
Yeah, no, I agree. We asked that question a little earlier in the show, so we got another minute or so left, and then I'll ask it to you now. Manuel Ward said last night, you cannot improve if you're not playing this weekend, right? You can't improve. You can't go up. You're done. You got no more data points, whatever. My question mark is how far down can you go? And he never answered that question. He never said, hey, listen, if you lose your conference championship game, you could fall a bunch of spots. We won't move you down. I said earlier, like, changing the game for me is new rule. If you play in and lose your conference championship game, you can only be jumped by other conference championship game winners. You can't be jumped by anybody who did not play that weekend, but there was nothing said of that sort. Does SMU stay inside that field of 12 if they lose the ACC title game to Clemson, assuming it's a close game and not a blowout?
If it's a close game, potentially. If they lose by double digits, no. The way that they're ranked right now, like if you look at just the bracket itself, you see them at the 3 spot and you're like, oh, they're sitting pretty good. But if you look at the actual rankings, you have them at 8. Almost every time that a team has lost this year by double digits, they fall in 4 spots. Almost every single time. And 4 spots leaves you on the outside looking in. Clemson then comes in, Alabama moves up, and then you have a Big 12 champion or group of 5 to solidify that 12 spot, which, by the way, I think if Arizona State wins the Big 12, they jump into the bye, and then you get a Boise State on that opening weekend. But I think if SMU loses by double digits, they're out, and they're going to have Alabama in instead. I hate that, but I think that's the way they're going.
Then 10-second answer. Who you got, Clemson or SMU?
I got SMU. I think SMU is a great offensive team, so I got SMU.
Kevin Jennings, not just an absolute dog. We'll find out. Denton Day is the host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM. Also a host and producer on 106.7 The Fan. Joins us every Wednesday here on the show. Denton Day, when next we talk, brother, we will have the final rankings in the bracket filled out. Looking forward to it, my dude.
I can't wait for it, man. This is what we live for.
Denton Day. Absolute legend, fashion icon in college football, brainiac. He'll be back next week to talk about the final rankings. We have got much more coming up. We've got Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits, joining us in the next hour. We've got the audio blitz coming up for you as well. All of that and more after Lonzo seduces you with this sports flash.
Or just makes you feel tingly. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, I guess. Last night, an unranked Clemson men's basketball team upset number 4 Kentucky 70-66, earning the ACC's lone victory so far in the ACC-SEC Challenge. The Tigers had 4 scores in double digits, led by Jaden Zachary with 13, Chauncey Wiggins with 12, and Ian Shefflin with 11. The college football playoff rankings dropped last night. Oregon, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame make up the top 4, followed by Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, and Boise State in the top 10. Alabama sits at number 11. I saw that. Likely holding the final at-large spot, while South Carolina trails Miami and Ole Miss at 14. Clemson falls to 17 with Saturday's ACC title game left to play. Tune in tonight at 6:30 as the Furman Paladins take on the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. It's Furman versus FGCU right here on the Fan Upstate.
Bone pain without cringing. Listen, pain from arthritis is horrible. It robs you of all the stuff you love to do. But there are effective ways to deal with that pain, and I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. Everybody, it's Charlie James. There are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. And the place to go to is QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalize your joints so you can get out there and move again. So if you're living with chronic pain from arthritis, maybe an injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pain pills are not your only option. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced regenerative medicines to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics
Thank you, Stephen.
are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative, cellular treatment for your aching joints. This is the future of medicine. Call for a free consultation. They're at 864-448-3772. That's 448-3772 in Greenville and in Asheville. 864-448-3772 QC Connect.
Hi, this is Diesel.
And this is Cole Bryson from Wire to Wire.
We'll be live today at 1500 Gear Highway in Travelers Rest.
Stop by for your chance to win a $25 Eagles gift card.
Looking for the perfect Christmas gift for the golf lover in your life? The 2025 Upstate Golf Cart is here, and it's just $50 for 6 rounds of golf at 6 of the best courses in the Upstate. Order today at upstategolfcart.com. That's upstategolfcart.com. The perfect stocking stuffer.
You hear that? That's the sound of another year counting down. Another year missing your revenue goal. Another year wondering why your marketing isn't more effective. Another year worried about next year.
Gotta be honest, if he actually fell down, I probably would have stumbled. I think he might actually stage a fall, though, just to see if he makes me lose it. And I would respect that.
Find out how you can make your marketing budget work harder and drive more revenue. Contact us at scalemarketing.com or call us at 833-SCALE-25. That's 833-SCALE-25.
Your morning jolt of sports. It's the Rob Brown Show.
My man, the legend, the Tom Brady of South Carolina Sports Talk Radio, Chris Miller, making his Rob Brown Show debut. My man woke up. He's got his collar on. He's got the product in this AM, looking like he just stepped off the page of a damn GQ magazine.
You didn't call me Tom Brady, right? So I got to look for it.
That's fair.
I hoped that he hated Tom Brady like me and just came at you after you used that, but no, I guess not.
I'm going to say this. You're a better broadcaster than Tom Brady, Chris Miller. I'm going to say that on the radio right now. That's a statement of fact.
I think there's many people that are better broadcasters than Tom Brady at this point.
That's not unfair. Want to tell you, sincerely, you have been so incredibly kind since we got the chance to meet a handful of years ago at the FCBA Awards. I have appreciated that tremendously.
I get an opportunity almost daily to watch the show. I love what you guys are on Facebook. So I take a morning run and I always just plug it in my ear when I'm running and listen to what you guys talk about every morning.
Don't hit snooze. The Brown Show. Morning 6 to 10 on the thing.
The Fan Upstate.
I wasn't intentionally distracting him. I just ate it. That's all. I don't know what to tell you. Welcome to my life.
No, you didn't eat it, but you could. That's what I was saying. If you would have, I probably would have stumbled for sure. Out of concern, of course.
And here we go. The third hour of the Rob Brown Show goes now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Fan Upstate, Rob, the great one, Lonzo, and you here on the show. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about as we roll on. Usually in this spot, we would do the audio blitz. That, of course, would be my favorite audio from all over the sports multiverse that we picked up since yesterday. And we are going to do a version of it today. But as it is yesterday, and officially now the penultimate version of the college football playoff rankings hath been released.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Don't hit me like you want to, but I just want to remind people who weren't listening yesterday, when we go to break, we're giving away TSO tickets.
Yes, we are. Trans-Siberian Orchestra coming to town Friday, December 13th. That's next Friday, 4 p.m. We have got tickets to go see TSO, and we'll be giving those tickets away at the end of this segment. So stay tuned.
He wouldn't hit me because I'm cat-like, but the glasses make you think of, an abusive person. Wow. You throw a pencil. Dude, that's got a sharp
Oh,
end on it.
I didn't think it was sharp.
It's you can put someone's eye out with that.
Careful,
I want you
Ralphie.
to know that.
Careful, Ralphie.
Yeah, HR will be hearing from me later.
I thought you were HR.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I talk to myself.
That's
sometimes.
fair. All right, fair enough. Yes, TSO tickets at the end of the segment. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Audio Blitz. I want to run through 5 pieces of audio, all related to the college football playoffs as it stands. Yesterday, Shane Beamer was on Paul Feinbaum's show. And Shano, friend of the show, Shane Beamer, got the opportunity to effectively make one final pitch for the South Carolina Gamecocks to be included in the college football playoffs. Here's a part of what Shane had to say.
I know what kind of conference we play in here in the SEC. And as far as our team goes, I just, to me, if the committee steps back and says, right now at this moment, who are the 12 best teams in college football? It's hard to argue that we're not one of them. And the fact that we've won 6 games in a row, who we've beaten, I think 4 teams that we beat were ranked at the time we beat them. One of only 3 teams in the country that can say that. Our strength of schedule, we've gone on the road and we've won on the road 3 times, double digits margin of victory as well. And I just look at it as a coach. If I'm an opposing team and I see that South Carolina Gamecock logo pop up on the bracket as the team that I'm playing in the first round, I can't imagine there's many coaches and teams that would be excited about having to play us right now. That's just how I see it. And we know we would have to go on the road, and we've done that. We've gone to Lexington and won. We've gone to Norman, Oklahoma. We've gone to Clemson, and I get it. We have 3 losses. I understand that. But I just look at where we are right now compared to when those losses occurred. And we've got 2 losses by a total of 5 points where we had the ball in plus territory with an opportunity to win or tie the game, and we weren't able to get it done. So we're very blessed. We're very fortunate. We hope the playoff works out, but we know if it doesn't, that we're going to a great bowl game somewhere, and there's a lot of excitement, and there will continue to be with the opportunity to get a 10th win for this football team, which would be a huge accomplishment for sure.
So there's the final pitch of Shane Beamer. Now, that was recorded yesterday before the rankings dropped. At that point, obviously, Shane did not know that his team was going to check in and be at number 14, likely left on the outside looking in. I think Shane made as much of an argument, as strong of an argument as is possible for a 3-loss Southeastern Conference team. He included, obviously, the fact that 2 of the 3 losses were by 1 score or less, that 2 of those 3 losses, both of the 1-score games, included South Carolina with the football in plus territory with a chance to win or tie. He did not include the fact that if you go back to that LSU loss, which I think is the loss that keeps South Carolina out, you were looking at a loss where not only did you get hit with what might have been the worst call in 2024's college football season, at least the first one that comes to my brain. I'm having a hard time coming up with another one. You lost with that, and you lost in a spot where your starting quarterback, who was balling with a capital all in towards the end of the first half before he got banged up and could not make his way back out there, as the playoff committee established last year by keeping Florida State out. You should have the reality of not having your starting quarterback, the most important position in college football. That should be a factor, right? It was last year. And all of you that dropped the elbow on me, you all said that. And if that is the case, then South Carolina's loss to LSU is not as bad as it's made to look, because it was a 1-score game that the official stepped in and made a call that is, at the very most courteous language I could come up with, questionable. Still, South Carolina could have, should have won that game on a pick 6 without Lenora Sellers out there for the majority of the contest. So I think the pitch is fine. I think the head-to-head losses are going to kill you. Last night, Ward Manuel stepped onto the set of ESPN and was asked a couple of questions about how everything shaped up. I have asked the question over the past really 2-3 weeks, maybe. What does the committee do with teams who participate in but do not win the conference championship of their conference versus what do we do with teams who are in playoff spots but do not participate in conference championship games? It's a bit of long audio, so stick with me on this one, but here is what Ward Manuel said when asked that question by Reese Davis.
One more rankings to do. What could change? Could it change? Is it set?
Yes, it could change. It all depends on the outcome of these games. The commissioners have asked us to rank the top 25 through the conference championships, and that's what we intend to do.
Okay.
We have high regard, as I've said before, for those who are playing in those conference championships, and we will closely evaluate those games and the outcome of those games to rank the top 25 on Sunday.
Okay, among that cluster of teams, though, and I'm not talking about all of them or not talking about UNLV or Clemson knocking someone out. Among that cluster of teams, what could happen and why could anything happen to change the order?
Well, it just depends on those who are playing in their conference championships.
But none
how
of those
the
teams are
outcome of
playing
those
in the
games
conference
reads.
championships. You see what I'm saying? None of those teams we're talking about are playing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. So those who are not playing, we will not adjust those teams because they don't have another data point, obviously. But in terms of those who are playing, how they'll move, if they'll move at all. If you remember 2 years ago, TCU lost in their conference championship game and didn't move. They stayed at 3. So we could do that, or we could adjust depending on the outcomes of the game.
Okay, so I want to make sure, and I want to give you a chance to clarify to make sure that we're on the same page here. So absent one of the lower ranked teams, Clemson, UNLV, stealing a bid, as it were, then nothing would change that would move Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina in a different order or ahead of Alabama.
Any team that is not playing right now, we don't have a data point to rearrange where we have those teams ranked. And so that is set in terms of how we see them going into the final week of championship week. There's nothing that's going to change, Reese, for us to evaluate them any differently than we have now. Those teams who are not playing cannot be adjusted in terms of where they are compared to other teams that are not playing. But the championship teams, we will evaluate that data point to determine if there's needs to be any movement based on how the performance of the game goes.
So there you go. There is Ward Manuel effectively saying if you are not playing in your conference championship game, there is nothing to change your evaluation this weekend, which I do find interesting because one of the things that happens throughout the year is we do, although it does tread dangerously into the landscape of falling victim to the round robin of football. That is to say, X beats Y, Y beats Z, therefore X would beat Z, except for very frequently Z beats X. And we got a little circle of suck, as it's called on the internet, where, every team is lost to another team in that circle. He says if you don't play this weekend, you can't improve your standing, which effectively is him saying if you're Ole Miss, if you're South Carolina, and probably, though not definitively, if you are Miami, you are shafted. The only team that can really be in a good spot out of that group right now is the University of Alabama. As James just stepped into the chat a minute ago and said, the trick to making the playoffs in 2025 is having won 27 national championships previously.
Yeah, but he also said they're going to evaluate the teams in the championship games. And he made it sound to me like some of those could drop out, which would effectively move some other teams up.
See, I don't know. And even if that is the case, because I didn't have the same takeaway, though I acknowledge we all have a thing.
This is the first time I've heard it all the way through because I just read it. I didn't listen to them until now. And that's how I took it.
Sure. And that's fair. But here's the thing. Of all of these teams, if Oregon loses the Big Ten championship game, they're still in. If Penn State loses the Big Ten championship game, they're still in. They're not dropping from 3 to 13. If Georgia loses the SEC championship game, they're still in. They're playing Texas. That would be their third loss. I don't think they're going to put a 3, based on what we've seen, I don't think they're going to put a 3-loss Georgia that beat Alabama, or excuse me, that lost to Alabama. I still don't think they're going to move them behind Alabama. I think the farthest they'd fall is 10. There's only 2 teams in the top 12 this matters for, and that is SMU and Boise State. I think we all agree that if a group of 5 team inside the top 12 loses their group of 5 championship game, they're probably not staying in. The only team that I am very curious about this is SMU losing to Clemson. And we asked Denton Day in the last segment. Denton Day said what I said. He's got SMU picked to win this weekend, but he said as long as it is close, he doesn't see a world in which SMU drops out. Now the question mark is going to be if UNLV beats Boise State. If Clemson beats SMU, I think the SEC is getting 2 in. I don't think they're going to put Miami in. I think if Miami had found a way to lose to Syracuse but still be in the ACC title game, I think Miami probably stays in the mix. But I think if Clemson wins, the AC's getting 2. And if they win and get 2, I don't think any of this matters. I think Bama at that point, I think Bama would be out. And I think that's gonna enrage a lot of people, but it kind of is what it is. This is part of the reason why you've got a lot of people that are going to say today, and you're going to hear this phrase a lot today, hang on to the rage because we've still got a week of football to settle all this. Well, I'm going to keep it a buck. Like, yeah, we still have a week of football to settle all this, but that's a really nice way to get out of having to answer some tough questions, I think. It's a way to get out of answering some tough questions. It is a way of being able to get out of answering why Miami is behind Alabama but ahead of Ole Miss. It is a way of answering why Miami at 10-2, when you've already showed a willingness to have SEC teams get a win's worth of forgiveness for being in the conference that they're in, why Miami is ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina. Again, South Carolina fans, the starting point of this argument for you is not why are we behind Ole Miss and Alabama? Because, yes, you are playing better football than both of those teams. And anybody who says anything to the contrary doesn't know ball, brother. You're playing better ball right now. That is for certain. The problem you have is they beat you. That's it. That's all that comes down to. It is the Miami selection that's interesting. All right, last one before we take a break. Barrett Saleh was asked about his thoughts on South Carolina and that little jumbo of teams. Here's what he had to say.
South Carolina should be the team with the last spot in the college football playoff. And I know what you're going to say. Well, head-to-head to Alabama, head-to-head to Ole Miss. Those are valid arguments, very valid arguments. But the committee last year set the precedent that injuries matter. And an injury to a quarterback matters in a massive, massive way. It's not the same thing as Trey Harris against Ole Miss. It's just for Ole Miss. It's just not. So what happened in the LSU game? Lenore Sellers was absolutely balling out. And then he didn't come back for the second half. South Carolina loses that game. Would they have won with Lenore Sellers? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Gosh, where have you heard that take before? Goodness gracious, who have been saying that for a minute?
He sounded cool when he said abso-freaking-lutely.
I say abso-freaking-lutely all the time.
Yeah, that was my point.
And I sound cool too.
Uh-huh.
You can't. Don't bring me down, wow, and woo.
The glasses ain't helping.
Glasses help so much. Denton said I look very handsome today. Handsomer than usual, which is true.
I
hated it. Hated it so much.
No. I just heard a hint of sarcasm in his voice, but again, I don't know him like he did.
I don't run in circles with people who are sarcastic.
Yeah.
I don't run in those circles
because you don't understand sarcasm. So I get why you wouldn't want to be there.
Clearly. I listen, you've got advocates, South Carolina, and you are playing the best football. But it had one of the few things that has been established, and I will, despite it being against this team.
Advocates in that room.
That is correct. And we had a texter a minute ago that said, let me go pull this up. They said, Rob, the problem I have is there are too few committee members. I would take 1,000 members virtually over 12 or 13 people in a room who are bunkered up from everybody else. Again, been saying that for a week now. I agree entirely. I have said there's a real easy fix to this that the committee is never going to be on board with. A real easy fix. Fix number one is stick a webcam and a microphone in that room and do not allow any conversations away from them. Okay? No conversation. This whole thing, in Florida, we have what they call sunshine laws. That is to say, politicians in Florida are not allowed to discuss governmental business away from official places where they announce that they are doing it. Two politicians in Florida can't go sit down and I'm sure that they do it all the time. But the law is that everything in Florida that is discussed politically is open to the public, right? You can public records requested. That's why Florida man's a gimmick. That's why Ohio man's a gimmick. They got the same law. If something happens, anything from a citizen being arrested all the way up to the meeting of the highest ranking governmental employees in the state of Florida and Ohio, if something happens that involves any element of the government, it is open to the public 100%, right? The committee should have the same sunshine law. Every conversation they have should be open to the public. It would do a lot of things. Number one, it would let the schools know what metrics are considered more important so they could play to those. Number two, it would let us know what the hell's going on. The second best thing they could do, in my opinion, would 100% be to follow the AP poll. The AP poll has 62 voters of various backgrounds. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee should include a large range of voters from around the country, because the more voices you have at the table, the less room for inherent bias there is. The more you have at the table, the less impact that the television networks can have. The more people you have at the table, the less impact can be had by any outside force that would be able to put their thumb on the scale, metaphorically speaking. Because if one guy gets gotten to by a television network, if one guy gets gotten to by an outside influence, for every one guy, there's 5 other voters elsewhere around the country that ain't got to. Expand the committee and open up the meetings to all of us, and a lot of this goes away. All right, we'll talk more about this as the show rolls on. Rob Alonzo and you, the Rob Brown Show, the Fan Upstate.
Hold on.
Oh, that's right. You played the music, and I totally forgot to read my own notes.
It's okay. I was ready to jump in because I want people to make sure that they have a chance to win tickets.
What tickets, Lonzo?
That would be to TSO.
It sure would be. To TSO, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, next Friday, 4 p.m. at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. We have got tickets for a lucky giveaway winner right now to next Friday's show at 4 p.m. Lonzo, when those tickets are going to caller number 6. That's a lot of phone calls for you to answer. Caller number 6 right now, 844-326-3663, winning tickets to see TSO next Friday. Next segment, we're talking more college football. Then we got Kyle Mountain of the Greenville SwampRabbits, all that and more on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
friends, it's Rob Brown. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not, I don't know why you're here, but I am glad that you are. Hey, do us a favor. Whether you're enjoying it or not, would you mind sharing this around your social media, please? And thank you, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I don't care. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it doesn't matter to me. Help us get the good word out. We're trying to get famous and rich, and we can't do it without your help. So, The Rob Brown Show is on all social media, or share the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, wherever you're watching this, and we'd appreciate it very much. Now, let's get back to the show. Stick around.
The answer is yes. I will power tool Shane.
Wow.
I will power tool Shane.
First of all, congratulations to Nolan for winning the tickets. If you're still calling for those, we're already giving them away. We'll be doing it again tomorrow. But you're shaming Chris over his choice of power tools. First of all, not his personal power tool, bought by the company, but he likes it. And so you're so what is the best power tool to buy out there? It's Christmas season, Rob, and maybe someone's listening going, I need to buy Dad something. What's the best tool that I should buy for him?
What is the best
knower of tools, Rob Brown?
What is the best set of power tools is subjective. What is a power tool you should not buy isn't, and it's that one. Now, I'm not going to say the brand name because I'm not going to open us up to getting in trouble like that.
Well, I don't know that they're based anywhere around here.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm not running the risk because even if they're not, there's a lot of, we'll say, big box stores that sell this brand. What I will tell you is that the brand is known for their yellow power tools. They are cheap power tools, and they are cheap for a reason. That is to say, they break very quickly, and they are a mother to try to get fixed or taken care of without just having to buy a new one. I am not.
I don't have that expertise or arrogance or however you want to say it to look. So I don't even know what you're talking about.
No,
I don't.
I
looked. You recognized it right away.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
I have no idea what brand it was.
I do. It's yellow. It starts with an R, and I'll leave it right there. Here's what I'll say.
Is it Japanese?
I honestly don't know or care who makes them or where they're made at.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what name brand it is.
They are, I will tell you during the break. I'm not going to say it on the air because I don't know if I'll get in trouble, and I'm not going to run the risk on that. What I'm saying is if you are looking for power tools for mom or pops this year, and you go to a box store and you see a brand that starts with an R and is colored yellow, take a step up from that, at least one step up from that. And it is not, as Lonzo tried to pass it off
1% or take. That's what it seems like.
No, it's not.
Dude,
it is a matter of quality. It's not 1%er to go, I'd like a screwdriver that doesn't break when I screw.
Okay. Are you after you're done yelling? So the price point between that particular brand and the next brand, what's the difference? I mean, how much money are we talking? How much more money would they have to pay to get whatever you consider quality?
Not enough that it doesn't justify that these power tools break rapidly. Let me put it this way.
I got $25 to buy a tool, but you want me to buy the 45 one.
Yes.
Well,
because
I'm gonna use my 25 because that's all I got.
Here's the problem that a lot of people have. The problem a lot of people have is they only look at the initial purchase cost and not the long-term cost going into something, right? Like for instance, if you go buy clothing, yes, you can get that $10 shirt from the Big Blue store down the road. But you go into it knowing that $10 shirt is lasting maybe 8-9 months before it starts to fade and fall apart. Now you go down the store and you buy a $30 shirt. And you might go, I got to spend $20 more, but you're also going to get an extra year or two of wear out of that shirt. If you put the money over the life of the product, it's actually the better purchase. This is not about the initial purchase cost. This is about the long-term cost of the item in question. And if the long-term cost of the item in question is something that is cheap up front, it's probably because the quality isn't there long term. So if you go buy a car and that car's $20,000, or you buy the $30,000 car and the $20,000 car has all these maintenance issues, you're going to end up putting more money into the car than the difference, and you're probably going to have to get a new car faster versus spend the initial 10 grand up front, but you're going to get your 5 years out of that car and not nearly as many maintenance issues. This tool is going to fall apart after a certain number of uses versus spending another $20-$30 and getting an extra year over that.
Let me throw something out there. Just a possibility that maybe it's your skill level that causes you to break those tools, where if you had a better skill level, maybe they would work just fine with.
No, I appreciate your consistent daily effort to make it a Rob sucks at the thing problem.
No.
But it's not.
It's still a 1%er thing.
Because
there is an arrogance in your take. There are some people who only have so much money for something, and they can't go, oh, well, I'll just spend another $10 because they ain't got another $10 and they need to fix the problem.
Okay, fine.
And you're saying leave the problem. If you can't afford the tool that you suggest they use, then they should just deal with the problem.
No, what I'm saying is fine. Just understand you are going to be fixing and replacing that tool faster than the guy who saves the $10 to get the better tool. You just are. Texter said, hey guys, guess what? No one cares. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. I promise you. You don't think power tools are a topic of conversation amongst the boys? Yeah, they do.
The texter doesn't care about Christmas? Wow. We're talking about possibly getting a gift for dad or grandpa or Uncle Bob, and you don't care about that? I mean, come on. Where's your Christmas spirit?
Texter said, shout out Nolan. Let's go. Parentheses. Oh, that's me. Well done, Nolan. Congratulations on your dub. Enjoy TSO. Texter said, I'd like to know if the resumes for South Carolina and Alabama were flipped, if that 2-point loss would still matter more than 6 straight and multiple top 25 wins. Yeah, you'd be in the playoffs if you have 2 losses. You'd be up there with Georgia and Tennessee. That is the guarantee. That is why I've said South Carolina is the biggest what-if team of any team in college football this year. That's not a question. That's an absolute statement of fact. Had you won that game against Alabama, won that game against LSU, either one of those victories are flipped. Line of score exactly the same the other direction. South Carolina's ranked like 7th and go into the college football playoffs this year. That's all there is to it. All right, we'll talk more of your text because there's been a lot of them. When we come back, we have Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits, scheduled next on the show. Final hour of the show belongs to you. It's the Rob Brown Show. It's the Fan Upstate. All right, guys, got to step away one more time because we got to call Kyle. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
All right, so I have no idea what Tracy with that first. I know what Bosch is. I don't know what is that. Hilti?
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Why choose a sleep cover smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firm?
Exactly, Tracy. That's all I'm saying. I mean, usually when something breaks and you can't afford to have someone fix it, and you got to fix it yourself, or in your case where you're doing that kind of stuff, you're going to go with the cheapest thing you can find. But if you have the skill to do it, I mean, I don't. I, by the way, rarely have the skill to do it. So, I mean, it's. If you face plant in that jersey, you got to just jump right back up and go, yeah, it was nothing. That's twice now.
You know what we need, and I'm gonna go get today? We need like a legitimate hockey goal horn is what we need. We need a goal horn.
You know, I would have expected that you wearing that awesome looking Swamp Rabbits jersey would already have one on your soundboard.
I'm a little disappointed in myself for not having one, to be honest with you.
You know, we all are disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed in me, to be honest with you. Like there's no reason that I don't have a hockey goal horn. We're the only show in the upstate that talks hockey, and we don't have a hockey goal horn.
I mean, what's the difference between a regular? I mean, what does it sound like? I mean, I'll get you one.
The hockey goal horn is usually it sounds more like a train air horn coming through than anything else. Let's see. Here's a couple of samples, and then we're getting Kyle Mountain is on the phone, and we're coming to him. But you know what we're gonna do? Like
that sounds like a tugboat.
That's the Anaheim Ducks.
That's a
goal
tugboat,
horn.
dude. That's a tugboat.
That's the Phoenix Coyotes.
That sounds like a train.
That's the Boston Bruins. All right.
That's the invasion of the aliens.
Buffalo Sabres. All right. You got the Calgary Flames going down right now.
You notice they're all in different keys.
This is.
I mean, musically, they're all in different keys. Haven't you noticed?
Well, every
that?
team's got their own goal horn. It's not like one. Like this is Carolinas, by the way. Carolinas is dope. Carolina sounds foreboding at the least.
Sounds like someone leaning on the left side of the keyboard.
Carolina plays that, and then they also hit the Ric Flair woo afterwards.
All right.
It's pretty great.
Well, as long as you got that.
Kyle Mountain, is there anything better in sports than standing on the bench, watching the boys rip a slapper into the back of the strings and hearing that Swamp Rabbit goal horn go off?
It is the best, and I'm surprised in you. And I'm with Lonzo. I'm a little disappointed. I thought that would be like rigged up as your car horn or something like that, knowing you. So that's I don't know. I think we got some work to do. I think we got to get that on the show at the very least. But yeah, there's some good ones there. You played some good ones, so you got your pick.
Listen, the goal horn going off. First off, it might be the loudest celebration sound in any sport anywhere. Like it's getting your attention. There's just something about a classic goal horn, and you can make it your own. Like the Swamp Rabbits, they got a whole ass train horn set up in the well.
Do you not know the sound guy for the Swamp Rabbit?
The horn's a different thing. It's like an actual horn.
Well,
right? Like it's the sound guy doesn't push a button.
So, okay,
it's like a whole rig.
So you don't have like a phone that you brag about all the time that has recording functions on it that you couldn't do that. And I'm saying, you are there.
Kyle Mountain, I am sorry. Much like a player who misses a shift, this one's on me, and I'll do better next time.
Hey, that's all we can ask for. We're just looking for some progress here.
Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits, joining us here on the show. Coach, let's go back in time a little bit, because the last time that we had the opportunity to speak with you, we had just come off of the worst loss that we had all season. And then the boys turned around and got hot, and have stayed that way. There's been a couple of games dropped on the road since last we talked, but the well has been well defended since then. Give me just your overall status report on the squad so far.
Yeah, I think our last little stretch here overall has been strong. I mean, obviously our last couple took a step back, but overall our last 10 or so, I think things have really come together in a good way. And you expect that, there's some ups and downs, and especially with a fairly young group with a lot of first-year pros, you just expect that there's going to be a little bit of that, riding the roller coaster, so to speak. But I think we found a lot of good. So, now it's just about finding the consistency with that. So knowing what makes us good, and, tapping into that a little bit more, and just, making that our standard on a game-to-game or day-to-day basis. So, it's been good. The group's really coming together, which is great to see. And, looking forward to a good weekend of a lot of hockey coming up here.
Kyle Mountain joining us here on the show. Head coach of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. Coach, you guys had a 5-game winning streak, but You've had about a week off since you got back from that roadie to Jacksonville and South Carolina. Talk to me a little bit how important this week of rest is, man. I mean, you guys go on these blitzes of games and being as physical and as demanding as hockey is, I can't imagine that this little stretch of 6 days off isn't a boon to the squad.
Yeah, no, it's huge to get that mixed in and get guys recovered, get guys rested up. Got a couple guys with a little bit dinged up, which obviously happens, and I'm sure everybody's dealing with that at this point. But to get a few days just to reset, guys, everybody's getting back in their own bed and just kind of settling back in and getting some home games on the schedule here coming up. We're all really excited for that. So it's nice to just have a full week of just being able to get reset, get some guys back and get guys healthy before a big weekend coming up here.
Let's talk a little bit, Coach, about these last two games. The two L's, both on the road, one at Jacksonville, a 5-2, and then drop one 3-0 at Atlanta. Was there anything out of those two games that got a little squirrely, got a little sideways that you guys are going to spend time cleaning up before a two-game homestand with Orlando on Friday and then a revenge rematch against Atlanta on Saturday? What was it that stood out from those two L's that you guys are, as a coaching staff, are going to work on getting corrected?
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing with both games was just kind of the way we started the game. So I think just, not starting the way that we need to. So giving up some early goals, some first period goals, and then just digging ourselves a hole. So I think, in both games, we did see that, through the second and third period, I think things got a little bit better. We got to our game in a better way, but they're good teams. So when you dig yourself a hole like that, you're just, you're kind of asking for trouble. So I think, cleaning up our starts a little bit, I think playing with a little bit more urgency and a little bit more desperation from the jump rather than, when it's too late, I think was certainly a theme throughout those two. So, correctable, something that we can certainly address and hopefully improve here. And again, having home ice, for a couple games this weekend is always a boost. So I think we'll look forward to getting off to a really good start this weekend and going from there.
This is a question personally that I'm curious about, Coach. Obviously, while you guys were away, there were a couple of events taking place at the Well, including one that utilizes the ice, a skating show that came through and had a handful of days where they were running multiple shows out there on the ice, which of course means the ice is it's got to be stripped down, it's got to be painted, it's got to be scraped off, it's got to be laid back down. Does that have any impact on the fellas when the ice has to change in the middle of the season? And again, this is one of those things I don't think anybody but you and the fellas can answer. Is there any impact on the team, on the games, when the Well goes through these changeovers in the ice that's actually down on the floor?
Yeah, we had that last year, and I know, I don't remember it being a huge factor. Obviously we're just out of our building for a little bit. So we've got a practice facility up in Greer. We're able to, still get the ice time that we need and the practice time that we need. And, the Well, they do a really good job of maintaining the ice and making sure that it's suitable for what we need. And, I have no concerns there. So I think, again, it'll be really nice to be back in our room, back in our building this weekend. I know they'll do everything they need to have the ice prepped and ready to go for us. And, like I said, hopefully we'll get off to a hot start here and, start our weekend off on the right foot. But, really looking forward to being home.
Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits, joins us every Wednesday at 8:40 here on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate to talk a little bit of Rabbits hockey. Coach, you guys currently sitting 8th in the South Division right now, 10 points off the top of the table, but you also have 16 games in hand. Some of the other teams has played as many as 18 games so far. So there's a little bit of difference there to be made up, a little bit in terms of having to pick up the points per game as the season goes on. And I know for a hockey team at the level that you're at, you guys have all the extra factors of players getting called up, players getting sent down, players that are on contracts that require them to get a certain amount of play time or a certain amount of rest time when they're out there. I know that these are all things that go into a game-by-game decision-making process, but when you look at a spot where you're 10 points off the lead, but we're only a quarter, maybe a third of the way through the season, is that something that you're keeping an eye on, looking at the Floridas and the South Carolinas up at the top of the table and try to keep them in striking distance? Or is this something that you'll pay attention to maybe a little bit later on in the season?
Yeah, not getting too bogged down in that now. I mean, every opportunity to win a game in division is huge. So those points are really big. But, for us, it's about making the playoffs. I mean, whether you're a 1 seed, a 4 seed, I think it's just about getting in. So we're still really early. We're 16 games in, out of 72. So it's, obviously we want to start finding our game more and more as we go along here, pick up points every single opportunity we can. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's necessarily scoreboard watching or anything like that at this point. It's, really taking care of what we can, to get our identity right, to get our team, our play in the right place. And, for us, it's about, we got to be playing our best hockey at the end of the season. So, when March and April roll around, that's when those points become even more, important. But it's about playing our best hockey at that point in the year. So, for right now, it's just continuing to, hopefully trend upwards and, correct the things that we need to, in order to keep progressing and, making sure we're putting ourselves in a good position to not only make the playoffs, but make a run.
Talk to me a little bit, Coach, about the fan base of this team. I saw there was a good number of fans that were at the away game down in Jacksonville. I mean, I'm out there on the ice with you. Well, not with you guys. I'm next to the ice when you guys are on it at home games. And during that little win streak at the crib, there was definitely a pickup and a buzz in the electricity of that building. Do you guys feel that, and how much of an impact does it have when the Rabbits fans are bringing a bunch of kids in for school day or a bunch of guys in for Star Wars night, and then just the non-theme night games on a Saturday where the Well's got maybe a little bit of energy to it? How much does the hockey team feed off of that?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, like anytime we can play at home, I think that the crowd just gives us that boost that we're looking for. And, being on the road for an extended period of time certainly makes you miss that. And we're definitely looking forward to getting that back. But the fans have been awesome. The building's been great. And like you said, we've got one of the better, if not the best, goal horns, I think, going in the whole division. So it'll be good to get that going this weekend. But we're really excited to get back home. I mean, the fans are, they're awesome. We love playing on our home ice, and we're looking forward to getting the place back this weekend and getting some good hockey for the fans.
A callback to the goal horn discussion. He has been on the bench as the head coach of the SwampRabbits for less than a half of a season, and he's already working the media landscape like that. Well done, Kyle Mountain.
I mean, I'm going to stay on you about this goal horn thing. We got to get this fixed. It's got to be a staple. Like we got Alonzo. I know you're already on it, but I don't know. I think we're. Oh no,
it's out of my hands now. This is on him. It should have been on him in the first place. So I will stay on him and ask him daily, maybe multiple times on the air why he hasn't done it yet.
Well, I expect next week we're now talking about the new goal horn for the show. So hopefully that's on the agenda for next week.
Coach, I want you to know that there are many things, many critiques that you can give me, but one critique I will not accept. I am not uncoachable.
Well done.
I'm not uncoachable, Kyle Mountain. I can take the criticism, be a better player day by day.
It's huge, and look at that. You just upped your stock big time. So yeah, that was well done.
All right, who helped you?
Nobody helped me. I'm capable.
Somebody sent that to you.
Not at all. Not at all. You just got a deep dive into the bag of tricks sometimes and show that you've got it. It's not just about scoring goals, Kyle Mountain. It's what you can do off the puck to help the team. You know what I mean?
That's right. You just have a little bit of everything, or Swiss Army knife, as they say. So that was a nice little surprise. I thought we were going to have to wait a whole week for that.
Not at all. Not at all.
We're
good at this.
I am proud and disappointed all at the same time.
Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville SwampRabbits. The Bits are back in the building on Friday against the Orlando Solar Bears. Then on Saturday, a revenge rematch from an away loss last weekend as the Atlanta Gladiators come to the crib. Kyle Mountain, appreciate you, big dog. Good luck. We'll see you Friday night at the Well, pal.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Appreciate it. Lonzo, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Always. Kyle Mountain, head coach of the Greenville Swamp. I don't know if that's the right one, though. Like, it's a good one. There's a few more.
Should have waited to question that off the air because he was convinced that was the right one.
Well, that is the right one for now. But, you know, the right shot it's a game by game, scenario by scenario situation, right? Like, I might line up the best slapper in the game, but if the apple comes from the other side and I don't have time to rip through, sometimes I might have to set that thing up and go with something else.
All right,
you know?
you're going to have to prove to me later that there's not a button they push to cause that to happen in the arena.
Well, okay, all right. So I can tell you exactly
because that's what you said.
I can tell you exactly what it is. The goal horn, at least for the Greenville SwampRabbits, the goal horn is an actually air-powered horn.
Oh, it really is a horn.
It is. It is a huge box up in the roof.
How
In fact,
how do you trigger that?
I'm going to tell you. It's a big box up in the roof. And if you ever go to the game, not only can you see it, but after they hit it, you can actually hear the engine pulling air in to reload it. Like, it's loud. Zzz, you can hear it. Inside of the production booth, which is at the top of section 100, there's a glass box. And inside that glass box sits my homegirl, Alexis. She's the one that runs the game. She does all the production. She's the director. She's the Lonzo of the Greenville SwampRabbits, right? She's in charge of everything. And next to her is, and I'm not making this part up, a box about that big around with a red button on it about the size of your hand. Okay? It is like a cartoon explode the dynamite TNT button. And she hits that button
Well,
and
it
the
sounds
horn
like a
goes
button
off.
that you have to hit, not tap.
Oh, yeah, you can't tap. It's like, because it's designed to not accidentally, because the horn's always on. So, like, if there's a concert going on and somebody rests their elbow and hit that button, that goal horn will go off in the middle of a guitar solo.
Well, I was gonna say, depending on what concert's going on, people may not notice. So,
like, it may go off at any given point. So this button is not one you can, like, you know, you hear me hit a button and accidentally play a sound like twice a day.
never,
Right?
never.
Right? Because the space bar, oh, it's not going to do it now, but the space bar plays a button. So if I breathe on it, it goes off. This thing is made to where you have to intentionally mash it to make that thing go off. It's a pretty cool little process. Pretty little process.
I still think you probably could record it. I'm just saying.
Just use that.
I don't know that. Yeah, the other one was better.
I'm now going to push the big red button that makes Lonzo do a sports flash.
Sorry, you said pooey. I can't even read. It wasn't push that you said. I have no idea. I'm just going to read now. Last night, an unranked Clemson men's basketball team upset number 4 Kentucky. They go down 70-66, earning the ACC's lone victory so far in the ACC SEC Challenge. The Tigers have 4 scorers in double digits, led by Jaden Zachary with 13, Chauncey Wiggins with 12, and Ian Shefflin with 11. The Gamecocks men's basketball team knocked off Boston College 73-51 on the road last night, improving to 5-3 on the year. Colin Murray Boyles had 16 points and 14 boards to lead the team in both categories, while Nick Pringle added 11 points. Make sure you tune in tonight at 6:30 as the Furman Paladins take on the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. It's Furman versus FGCU right here on your home for Furman Paladins basketball, The Fan, Upstate. Colin Murray Boyles. Why do I struggle with Boyles? Stayed out in the sun too long. That's why. You know, Boyles.
I can't even say the words bone on bone pain without cringing. Listen, pain from arthritis is horrible. It robs you of.
I don't know if it still says no or not. I'd have to get up and walk around there. I'll check in a second, though.
Everybody, it's Charlie James. There are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. And the place to go to is QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can get out there and move again. So if you're living with chronic pain from arthritis, maybe an injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pain pills are not your only options. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced regenerative medicine to treat.
I could do that, but now it's in my head that I can't say it right. So now I'm going to keep pushing till I get it correctly. Then once I do it right once, then I will go to CMB maybe. I don't know. There's certain names that just, I mean, like Giannis. I can say it in my head. I hear it, but I just can't say it. And for some, it may be the hyphen that gets me. I don't know, but I struggle with it. Colin Murray Boyles.
That's it. Colin Murray Boyles.
I don't think I'm not going to listen to you about that. It's Murray. It's not Murray. It's not. It's the Boyles part. See, I said it fine there, but usually I want to say Boyles, like I'm from New York or something. I don't know.
New York, huh?
Hey,
Colin Murray Boyles.
You know that family, the Boyles family. James wants to know if your button still says no.
It does.
Okay.
Well, it does, but it's over here, and I don't use this one anymore.
Oh, okay. So
when I use this one, it was a no button, but now I switch to this mic, and it says on. I should flip it, but I'd have to break it to do that.
I was going to say, I thought for a second you were going to try to. It's like, don't do that. We're already getting an email later. Don't make it 2 emails. Now I want to know what's in the email. Unless he told you what was in the email that we're all in trouble for.
Welcome to Staples. Help! My family's in for the holidays and I need gift ideas. That's why we're here. Staples has amazing deals on everything.
Since no one ever reads any emails, though, so why are we even worried about it?
I don't know.
Perfect. Have anything for Uncle Frank? I love him, but the guy is never quiet.
Noise canceling headphones for you.
You get it.
They're awesome. They really are. So you think those hovering drones in New Jersey are actually aliens disguised as drones? They're supposed to be pretty big.
I think they're drones. We just have those. You can just buy those at a Walmart.
Yeah,
now.
but they're really big drones.
You can just. Here we go. Wait, sorry. Here we go. The final hour of the Rob Brown Show starts now, and I do have to give a shout out to the president of the Greenville Triumph, and of course, an absolute believer in supporting local sports, as we do here on the Rob Brown Show. Thanks to Kyle Mountain of the Greenville SwampRabbits coming by. Chris said, "You know what? The Bits are an affiliate of the LA Kings. I'm going to audition the LA Kings goal horn." The LA Kings goal horn sounds like this, Lonzo. That's not bad.
It sounds like a big old choo-choo train. Is it a choo-choo train?
That's not bad.
It's a choo-choo train.
So a lot of them are. There's train horns. There's lighthouse fog horns.
Yes.
For some of them. Like they all have their own their own specific sound to them. Mark Benetti, the mouth of the Greenville SwampRabbits, suggested, and Chris Lewis will approve this one too, as he is a Rangers guy, the New York Rangers goal horn. Got a little more bass to it.
If you're hearing that, it's already too late. Abandon your vehicle.
I think the Bruins have an interesting submission. Theirs it's that foghorn sound, right?
I think we're back to that's some sort of nautical vehicle of some sort.
But I got to tell you, I'm very partial, and maybe because I'm a little bit biased. I'm a little biased towards the Hurricanes. Theirs is just.
It does have a dark side of the force kind of feel to it.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. There's another one that I don't know. I got to look up because some of these teams change their goal horns years to year. Here's the Predators. Which in Music City checks out that it sounds very like church organy, right?
I would just be curious. I mean, this is definitely a semantic down the rabbit hole thing of lining all these up and playing them together and see if they achieve harmony, because they're at different octaves, and you know what I'm saying? And it'd just be interesting.
Texter said, Rob, you're really horny today, aren't you?
Yes, he is.
You know what? I've just decided. You are all here for a moment in Rob Brown Show history, because what I've just decided is good text, get a goal horn. All right? You send me a text that good, you catch a goal horn celly.
The fact that you're having to yell over the thing, which, I mean, get louder than luckily you've calmed down after hour 1 and 2, because those were amazing. But well, I guess I could just turn your volume down a little bit. But it's just
new rule. The new rule is a great text. A great text catches a celly, baby. You lay up the apple for the slap shot dime, and you catch a goal horn.
Have you ever got to push that button?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes. Nobody was in the building. It was in a pregame, because you got to test it out pregame, make sure it's working. Because there's been a game or two where it didn't work, and you got to scramble to get the sound guy to go find a goal horn to play through the system. And so we got to test that out every game. And there was a game that I was up there already, and I have a little, comm with an FBI earpiece in.
Yeah.
And I was up there, and this was 2 years ago when my girl Terry was she works for the Predators now. She got hired from the SwampRabbits to go run game prods for the Predators in Nashville now.
So
when
it's
she
not
was
just
there,
the players and coaches that can move up. That's interesting.
yeah, she got hired from the SwampRabbits to go run. If you go to a Predators game, she runs the show like she did here. And now it's my homie Alexis. So last year I was up there and she was down in the tunnel. I had my earpiece in and she's like, Rob Brown, are you in the box? And I said, yeah. She goes, I forgot to test the goal horn. Can you hit the button? Can I hit the button? Ma'am, I am going to drop an elbow on the button like I'm Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3. I'm coming down on that button like it owes me money. All right. And I did. And here's the fun thing. Because it's air driven, there's only so much air in the horn. So if you stay on the button, it goes until it's out of air, and then it's like, Meh.
Oh, that shouldn't be as cool as it sounds.
Oh, I got in trouble. I haven't been allowed to push the button since. But I laid on that button like somebody just cut me off in traffic. Meh.
You probably scared some people half to death.
Everybody in the building.
Yeah.
And then I aggravated the crap out of them because it goes like 35 seconds before it runs out of air. I let the whole thing go. She's like, okay, that's enough. I can't hear you over the horn. What did you say? I can't hear what you said over the horn. All right. That's it. Texter said, go Tigers, Kentucky sucks. Hit that goal horn. That might be it. That is it. Good text, catch the horn. From now on, good text, catch a celly with the goal horn. I love it. That's in. That's a new thing we do here on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate. Good text, catch a horn celly.
So if you don't catch one, it's not because you forgot. It's just because your texts suck. That's what it's going to be.
Okay, you understand. Okay, let me rephrase it. Good texts get read.
Great text.
Great text.
There we go.
Catch a celly.
Clarified.
A text saying that I'm feeling very horny today. Catch a goal horn celly, without a doubt. Well done. Well done. All right, you're all here for Rob Brown Show history as a new piece of lore is added to the canonical legend of the Rob Brown Show. Well done. Your goal is now to get a goal horn text. You pull that off, you get to go to work to brag to your friends and family. Because I got to tell you, I think that like one, maybe two of those go off per show. Max 1 or 2 per show. Great text. Get a goal celly.
James says bad text should get the meow they do, because they're usually from Tiger fans.
That feels inappropriate. That feels inappropriate.
I enjoyed it just as much as you did pushing the horn.
You know who's not getting a goal horn celly today? That one was just so I can play it one more time. Mark Schlereth, Big Stink. Now, Big Stink had a moment on the show in an audio blitz last week.
He's
week,
just always kind of annoyed me. So I mean,
I'll tell you what I feel about Schlereth. Respectfully to Big Stink, I feel like about once every 2 or 3 months, when the NFL stuff's getting hot and heavy, I feel like Schlereth feels like he just has to say something to get himself propped up into the conversation. Honestly, like respectfully, I feel like Stink every now and then feels like he has to say something just to get talked about.
You know, that's exactly what a Mark would do.
Schlereth yesterday was being asked about the 3-game suspension that was handed out yesterday to Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. And here is what Big Stink had to say. I want your gut reaction to it.
Okay, then let's stop letting quarterbacks run with the football, because that's a designed run call on a 2nd down and 7. You get him outside the pocket. He is a runner at that point. He is a runner who is unprotected. And all of a sudden, there's a late slide. I mean, if you look at it, like, what is Al-Shaair supposed to do? Like, you're sitting there, you're going, okay, here it is. I'm defending the 1st down. He's going at the top of the numbers right here. He's still a runner. He's still a runner. What do you want me to do now? Just let him get the 1st down? Is that what I'm supposed to do as a defender? No. And so all of a sudden you're saying, okay, I'm committed. Then he starts to slide late.
Okay. Stink, he did not start to slide late.
All right. So
he did not.
So I would suggest if he didn't use his forearm and come down like that, maybe he wouldn't have been suspended. Maybe.
I want to say
that was the slide. I do agree that the late slides are something that quarterbacks are using, including Patrick Mahomes has used this a couple times, made it look like he was going out of bounds. He didn't slide, but the defender gives up because they don't want to take a chance of getting in trouble for hitting them, and then he's gotten 10 or 15 yards out of it.
Well, remember,
so quarterbacks are taking advantage of this.
Remember, this was a conversation at the college level because we had, and I'm blanking on who it was. Was it Kenny Pickett? It was Kenny Pickett, wasn't it? With a fake slide a couple of seasons ago during either the end of the season or right up to a bowl season. They had a fake slide where he kind of simulated the start to a slide.
And then now they have the rule that you can't do it.
And now they have the Pickett rule, which is why now the rule is, and this rule is in the NFL as well. The player is down at the moment they begin a slide. So even if they simulate it, they are still down. Now, if it's being poorly officiated, that's one thing. As a matter of fact, and you know a guy that I am a big fan of, but I will go here. I think if it was correct, I don't remember if it was the Kansas game, a Kansas City game, or another one, but there was a game, if I recall correctly, that Josh Allen got away with simulating a slide to avoid a hit and then kept going, right? Like he had the ball tucked away and he like kicked his front leg out as if he was going to slide, but then he kind of leaned forward into that leg and kept going, and it was allowed to go on. And a guy pulled up on the tackle, and Josh Allen picked up another 8, 9, 10 yards before his next round of contact. I think the solution here is the minute a quarterback starts even a simulated slide, he's down automatically wherever the ball is, even if he doesn't go down. And what you're going to have, there is going to be a fight to this, which is a quarterback is going to say, well, what if I put a leg and move back, right? Like I try to jump back. We saw, who was it? Saquon Barkley, I think a couple of weeks ago, kind of got to a point going out of bounds. I know Mahomes has done this a bunch of times.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Where he gets to the sideline and they hit the brakes to let a tackler go in front of. Lamar Jackson did it at the end zone. Hit the brakes, let a guy go in front of him, and then walks in for the tutty afterwards. To me, those were never simulated slides. Like Mahomes not getting busted up for simulating a slide.
But
he's getting busted up for simulating going out of bounds then cutting up, right? And to me, that is a much more difficult problem to solve. That Trevor Lawrence slide, please don't hit me with, it was it was a late slide and Azeez Al-Shaair didn't have time to pull up. Bull crap. Yes, he did. And I know that because it happens once a game in every NFL game where a quarterback goes into the slide, and Trevor Lawrence was like 9 yards away from Al-Shaair. Al-Shaair had the time from the start of the slide from Trevor Lawrence to the contact with Azeez Al-Shaair, or from Azeez Al-Shaair. He had time to change his direction, to square up with Trevor, to accelerate towards Trevor, to shift his center of gravity forward in a dive, to load up, as Lonzo pointed up, loaded up that arm and rocket into the head of Trevor Lawrence. Even if, let's say, the hit wasn't avoidable, a pure forearm shot to the helmet was. But I absolutely disagree with Mark Schlereth. There was more than enough time for Al-Shaair to recognize the slide and pull off the hit. Certainly pull off the hit directly to the dome, but to avoid the hit on Trevor Lawrence. And on top of all of that, the reason that, because I know Nick Caserio, the GM of the Texans, came out and said that the punishment of Al-Shaair was, amongst the other words he utilized, bull in its entirety. He said, quote, "What we take umbrage with, took issue with the depiction of Al-Shaair's character." He said, "What we take umbrage with is the picture that's been painted about Azeez. His intentions, who he is as a person, quite frankly, it's bull and it's unfair. He was elected a captain after being a blah, blah, blah. I don't care. What do you mean his history? My dude, the guy has been fined, that I could find, at least 5 to 6 different times. He put a hand around the throat of Tom Brady at one point. And not like a part of the tackle, my hand, like very clearly went for the throat. He has been fined 2 or 3 different times for clearly late hits out of bounds. I'm going to say this. If that was an unavoidable hit for Al-Shaair, he doesn't need to be out there playing football. He just doesn't, because there was more than enough time to react. I'm going to tell you this. I ride a motorcycle. When you go get your motorcycle license, one of the tests that you have to pass, Alonzo, is they put an obstacle on the ground, like a brick or something, right? And the instructor stands behind that. And you have to drive towards him. I had to do it at 20 miles an hour. You have to drive towards him. And when you get 15 feet away from him, 15 feet, he points in a direction, left or right. And you have to recognize that direction, make the adjustment to steer the motorcycle, and you have to clear that obstacle in whichever direction he points to you. I promise you that is, at the very worst, the same amount of time that Al-Shaair had to close 8 to 9 yards of distance from when Trevor Lawrence started his slide. I'm sorry. You are not convincing me that Azeez Al-Shaair did not have time to make the adjustment, and you're making it even more difficult to convince me when you are trying to convince me that a guy who has been fined at least 5 different times for inappropriate contact on the football field, oh, this one was totally an accident. 5 different times, at the least 5 times. 5 is what I found in a cursory glance. And you're telling me that cat, 5 times he's been fined for this. That cat didn't have time to react? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. What do you want him to do? It's football's a split. This is why I said, you remember what I said yesterday? I think we are over-legislating football, even from a player safety guy. For instance, if a defender goes up to block a pass and he misses the ball and hits the quarterback in the helmet, that should not be a 15-yard penalty. It just shouldn't be. All right, I'm down for player safety, but a guy slapping a helmet ain't 15 yards worth of damage, okay? But in this case, there was more than enough time for Al-Shaair to pull up off that hit. And then he laid a gnarly hit right to the noggin. That's not it, man. That's not good enough. Quick break. Back after this on the Rob Brown Show with the Fan Upstate. Zoe, do you know a Christy Mann?
I don't think so.
Apparently she used to be a longtime listener of you and Mark, and she just Twitter DM me and said, I'm a longtime listener of the station. That said, Lonzo might remember you. I used to listen to he and Mark, who knows. And then she goes on to say, that said, I really did not care for your style at first. Blah, 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 blah. Came around to like you. She's like, I just came back around, wanted to drop a note. But she said that you might remember her from back in the day as a regular caller.
Here's the problem. I'm old.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, yeah.
Lonzo's falling apart.
It does sound familiar, but I am old and in pain. And
That's fair. That's fair. All right, guys, stepping away. Give me 30 seconds. Be right back. It's Rob Brown. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're not, I don't know why you're here, but I am glad that you are. Hey, do us a favor. Whether you're enjoying it or not, would you mind sharing us around your social media, please? And thank you, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I don't care. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it doesn't matter to me. Help us get the good word out. We're trying to get famous and rich, and we can't do it without your help. So, The Rob Brown Show is on all social media, or share the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, wherever you're watching this, and we'd appreciate it very much. Now, let's get back to the show. Stick around.
She just... But there are two other games on there, and I never played those before either. And I hate platformers, and technically part of it is platforming. Time jumps really suck. And they have speed run things that I don't remember, with there are arrows on the side of a hill that you have to speed down really quick and then jump. And if you don't hit the A button right at the end, you just go right down into your death. She won't play with anybody else but me. I'm like, man, I wish somebody else would play and get her past this stuff. Now I do want to see what the bad guy looks like, because I have no idea.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Rob and the great one, Alonzo, with you here. We have spent quite a bit of time this AM breaking down the college football playoff rankings, which were released yesterday evening. And to some groans and moans from the Carolina fans, they check in at number 14, and immediately after the rankings were released. After the rankings were released, the chairman of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee jumped on ESPN and said that aside from those playing in the college football conference championship games this weekend, no one else could do anything to change the committee's mind on them. My question is, should that be the case? And here's why. South Carolina went on the road and knocked off Clemson this past weekend. Lonzo, if Clemson goes into the ACC title game and they beat SMU by 50 points, shouldn't that make South Carolina's win over Clemson even more impressive? Like, that to me is a failure of logic. If we can look at the college football season and we can say, hey, your week 4 win over Alabama's week 4 win over Georgia is the reason we put them above Miami, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, then why is it that South Carolina's win over Clemson a week later, as opposed to 8 or 9 weeks later, can't be utilized to make their case even stronger?
Well, it's one of those things where I compare it to Penn State and Indiana, because SMU hasn't lost a game in the ACC, but who did they really beat? I don't know. Did they beat the biggest names in the ACC? So technically, they're going up against what has been the juggernaut of the ACC and Clemson. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Clemson could beat them by that much. I don't think they will. I think SMU is going to win. But if Clemson did that, it wouldn't shock me.
The best wins that SMU has on the schedule is a win over Nevada, if you count them. They have a win over number 22, Louisville. They have a win over then number 18, Pittsburgh. They have a win over Duke, who was in the top 25 for a brief period of time. And that's pretty much it. I don't disagree that the SMU Scheddy isn't all that impressive.
They could be Indiana or Penn State. They could very well be.
I think SMU could beat Indiana, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I do. I think they could beat Indiana. For the record, I think they can, not saying will, I think they can beat Clemson. We had Denton Day from Sirius XM on earlier. He's as objective as it gets, and he said he's picking SMU. Vegas has picked SMU. They're 2.5-point favorites. Now, I do think
I predicted them from the beginning.
You did.
The beginning. So I do think they're going to win. But if they lose, and they lose convincingly, I'm not going to go, man, I was completely wrong. It will be that Clemson showed up and they played, and it would prove that SMU hasn't played anybody.
I am fine with any of those thoughts. But if Clemson, even as a 3-loss team, goes in, and I do think for South Carolina's sake to use this as an argument, which I think they can and should. I don't know if the committee will take it into consideration or not. I do think this is part of the reason that the committee chair last night was so quick, Ward Manuel was so quick to get on ESPN and poo-poo the thoughts of any non-conference championship contenders improving their stock this weekend. I do think that it would be a fair argument that South Carolina going on the road and knocking off a top 12 Clemson team on the road, especially coming off of, granted, they had a tune-up match against Wofford the week before, but they had a stretch of top 25 Southeastern Conference games leading up to that rivalry game. I think it would be a fair argument for South Carolina to say, if Clemson beats, I'm talking beats, not escapes, not kicks a walk-off field goal. I'm saying if that final score ends up being like Clemson 35, SMU 14, Clemson 42, SMU 20, something like that, right? I mean, they thoroughly beat SMU. Then I think it would be very fair for South Carolina to say, wait a minute, Bama ended their season by getting the dog snot beat out of them by Oklahoma, a team that we went to their house and kicked the crap out of them. That team kicked the crap out of Alabama. And then they ended up at home beating up on a 5-win Auburn team. Yet we, granted, had Wofford the week that Alabama was playing Oklahoma, but we had a stretch of top 25 teams before that, won them, and then in the final week of the season went on the road to a top 12 team, beat them. It was not a convincing win, but it was a win on the road nonetheless. Beat that team, a team that turned around the very next week, overcame that loss, and won a Power 5 conference crown. This concept that, and I've said it a couple of times, that I do not think that conference championship losses should be damaging, but Clemson losing this game, I mean, what's a loss matter to them? They're out of the playoffs if they lose this game. Win and you're in, L and you go home, right? I don't think that a non-playoff team, or I don't think a conference championship losing team should be jumped by a conference championship non-participant, right? I don't think South Carolina, for instance, should be able to jump a team that played in and lost their conference championship game. I don't think, and this is just me, I don't think that Indiana, that Alabama, that Miami, that Ole Miss, or that South Carolina, I don't think any of them should be able to jump SMU. Even if SMU gets hammered, I don't think they should jump SMU. The only team from 9, a spot behind SMU back, the only team I think that should be able to jump SMU would be Boise State, for playing and participating and winning the Mountain West Conference Championship game. No one else should be able to jump SMU. If SMU wins that game, it won't matter because they would be one of the 4 highest rated conference champions, but they should be able to jump Tennessee, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I think those are all the teams that are competing in a conference championship game ahead of them. But I think they should be able to jump non-conference championship participants. But I do think that the results of conference championship games should be able to impact other teams. I do not think you should be jumped by non-championship game participants, but I do think your heads-up results against a conference champion should be considered. So, if Clemson was to knock off SMU and come back from the dead to win the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship and to make it into the playoffs, whether they catch the first round bye or not, if they do that, because keep in mind, if Clemson wins this thing and Arizona or Iowa State win the Big 12, they will theoretically still be ranked ahead of Clemson. And if Boise State wins, the Big 12 would suddenly go from you only have one team into, you got a team in, but it's on the bye. They would jump up and potentially either be the 3rd or the 4th conference champ. You would have the Big 10 champ in either Oregon or Penn State. The SEC champ is the 2 seed in either Texas or Georgia. You would have the ACC champ as SMU, or the Big 12 champ, in SMU, or the Boise State Mountain West champ in the 3rd seed. And then you would have the 4 seed be either Clemson or the winner of the Big 12 game. And right now, both Big 12 participants are ranked ahead of Clemson. So likely they would catch the 4th bye, assuming a Boise State win. And Clemson's playing in the first round probably as the 12th seed. On the road, probably going to Ohio State or to Notre Dame. Probably Notre Dame. Either way, tough game, lot to go. That's what you get for losing 3. But the point here is, if they win this weekend the ACC, then I think there absolutely should be a little bonus added to South Carolina's resume for the year. They should get credit not just for the win over Clemson, not just for a top 12 road win on the way. They should get credit for beating a playoff team. They should get credit for beating a team that ends up as a Power 4 conference champion and in the playoffs at that point. And if that's not enough to move them ahead of Miami, and that's not enough to move them ahead of Alabama, I don't know what else to do.
So I'm curious, what happens if Clemson wins and Penn State wins and Georgia wins and UNLV wins?
Okay.
And
give me
Iowa State.
Give me that again.
If Clemson wins
the ACC,
Penn State wins the Big Ten,
Penn State wins the B1G,
Georgia,
UGA wins the SEC,
and UNLV
beats Boise in the Mountain West.
And what's the other one?
Big 12, which is between the 15 and 16 Arizona State and Iowa State.
Yeah, that one doesn't matter because they're ranked 15 and 16.
It does matter because they are both ranked ahead of UNLV.
Okay, so let's say Iowa State wins.
Okay, and let's say Iowa State wins the Big 12. We are looking at your Big 4 champs being the ACC champ being Clemson, Penn State being the Big 10 champ, UGA being the SEC champ, Iowa State being the B1G champ. And I'm doing this off the top of my head real quick because I know we're late for a break. What you would have is, I believe, you would have Penn State be the 1 seed. You would have Georgia be the 2 seed as the SEC champ. You would have, I'm going to have to do this during the break. You would have, let me do this. Let me write that. With those being the consideration, let me write out the bracket during the break, and I'll tell you what that looks like when we come back, including a couple of other possibilities, mainly because I'm dumb and there's a lot of numbers here. I'm Rob, he's Alonzo. This is the Rob Brown Show. This is the Fan Upstate.
This is unlikely, but it is conceivable. It is football.
Tonight, visiting Florida Gulf Coast. It's a 7 o'clock tip-off. We'll have all the action live right here in the Fan Upstate. The Paladins are 7-1. They're coming off an 86-51 setback.
Okay. Let's go.
Last night, Clemson beat number 4 Kentucky 70-66. Number 22 Texas A&M over Wake Forest 57-44. College football this Saturday night. The number 17 Clemson Tigers battle number 8 SMU for the ACC championship. The game in Charlotte, North Carolina. Clemson 9-3 on the season. SMU comes in 11-1. In the SEC championship, it's number 5 Georgia battling number 2 Texas. NFL this Sunday afternoon, it's a road game for the Carolina Panthers. They're 3-9. They'll take on the 10-2 Eagles, who won 8 in a row. The Fan Upstate is your home for Paladins football and basketball. Follow all the action live right here in the Fan Upstate. Download the Odyssey app, search the Fan Upstate, and listen anywhere on your phone.
I'm at a smoothie bar asking people if they'd switch smoothies with me for $574. Oh, I'll switch. So what about $574 if you switch your home insurance to Allstate? That's a headache. Nope, it's painless. Oh, so it's easy money.
All right, so if that was the breakdown. Sorry, guys, bear with me just a minute. I have to write things. If Clemson wins the ACC, Penn State would be the 1 seed. Georgia
Stomach
would
issues?
be the 2 seed.
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, and sore feet.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these
The
symptoms.
next highest ranked would be
exocrine pancreatic insufficiency.
Iowa State as the 3 seed.
EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com
And the
speak
4
with
seed
your doctor. That's
would be
identifyepi.com.
Clemson.
Sponsored by AbbVie.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
The
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive
rest
skin,
of the
we've been playing
bracket
detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was
Because you got to figure out, where does Oregon drop to?
so we switched.
I mean, they're just
I mean, after that, it's
so Oregon would automatically be the next one in.
Oregon would likely drop to number I mean, probably number 5.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. Got to be clean. It's got to be tie-free and gentle. All right, number 1 takes on number 8. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college number 2 takes on.
Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs, so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I also had to make sure are there any other
This holiday season,
potential conference champions out there that we have to be aware of in the top 25 because Tulane dropped. Conference championship games this weekend. UNLV Boise State, we know that. Army Tulane, because Army's inside the top 25. So if they win the AAC.
Yeah, but in this scenario, it would be that Tulane would beat Army, so they wouldn't be a factor.
Oh, you're going if all the dogs win? I guess you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Georgia, Texas, Marshall, Penn State, Oregon, Clemson, SU. All right, so Lonzo asked the question going out of the break. What happens if you have just a metric buttload of upsets that were to take place in conference championship weekend? That would be Clemson knocking off SMU, Penn State knocking off Oregon, Georgia knocking off Texas, UNLV knocking off Boise State, and the Iowa State, Arizona State. Doesn't really matter where they go. They're kind of standing right next to each other at 15 and 16, both of them right behind South Carolina. That game, by the way, Iowa State, Arizona State taking place at noon. So is Ohio and Miami. The SEC title game on Saturday is Georgia at Texas at 4:00 from Atlanta. Marshall is at Louisiana at 7:30. Penn State at Oregon in the Big Ten title game is at 8 p.m. in Indy. And a game I will be at, the ACC title game, Clemson is at SMU. That one at 8:00 up at BOA in Charlotte. If those rankings go, if Lonzo's predicted round of madness takes place and all those upsets take place, which, by the way, there's 0 of these games I think are impossible upsets. 0 of these games are impossible upsets. UNLV has already given Boise State a run for their money at one point. Georgia ain't the same old Georgia, but I don't think Georgia is dramatically worse than Texas. Penn State knocking off Oregon's probably the one that I'm least confident in the upset happening. But is it impossible? No, not necessarily. It's about as neutral site as it gets. And Iowa State, I mean, it doesn't really matter who wins the Big 12 being where they're at. So if we filled out the bracket with upsets, the way I think it would shape down would be that Penn State would go from 3 to 1, at least in the bracket seeding. Penn State would be the 1 seed. Georgia, who is currently the second highest ranked team of these champs now, would go to the 2 seed. Iowa State as the Big 12 team, who is ahead of, assuming Iowa State or Arizona State, again, pick your winner there, who is ahead of Clemson, would go to the 3 seed, but Clemson would go all the way up to the 4 seed. Clemson would get a bye in this case. That would bump, of the teams that lost, that would bump Oregon to the 5 seed. It would bump, scratch that. And this is where, Lonzo, that question I've been asking all week comes into play. The question I've been asking all week is, how much, if at all, do you punish conference championship losers versus non-conference championship participants? And here's what I mean. Notre Dame obviously not playing in a conference championship game. They are in line to be the 5 seed right now. If Oregon loses, does Oregon go behind Notre Dame? Or do they stay ahead of Notre Dame? Because if they drop from 1 down to ahead of Notre Dame, they're the 5 seed. The 5 seed is rewarded in that case with a home game against the 12 seed, and you know what their second round matchup would be? A neutral site game against Clemson in this case, right? Now, it might be more advantageous in this case to be the 6th seed, because if you're giving me the opportunity, Lonzo, between Clemson and Iowa State, I'd rather play Iowa State. All due respect to Iowa State.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the 6th seed might be the advantage. So again, the question's asked once again. Would Texas fall from number 2 and stay ahead of Notre Dame? Or would they fall behind Notre Dame? Because maybe Notre Dame goes from being the 5 seed because we've got to replace Oregon and Penn State, Oregon and Texas ahead of them. They could fall down to the 6th seed. But assuming that undefeated or one-loss conference champions who take their second loss in the conference championship game or their first loss in the conference championship game would not drop behind Notre Dame, that would likely mean that Notre Dame at that point would go down to the 7th seed. After Notre Dame, next up is Georgia. We've slotted them as the SEC champ. After them would be Ohio State, which means Ohio State, Lonzo, would be the 8th seed. You would be playing a home game against the 9 seed. Assuming everything stays the same, the 9 seed would be Tennessee. Now, again, we're back to that same question. Conference championship participants who lose. Are we dropping SMU back for losing to Clemson? Because if the answer is yes, they're out of the playoffs. If the answer is no, SMU becomes the 10 seed and would play a road game against Notre Dame. Now, I'll tell you right now, I like SMU. I like Notre Dame in that game a lot more. I like Notre Dame in that game because it's in South Bend, Indiana in the middle of December. Respectfully to SMU, this is why I hate cold weather football. I'm less against it in college because the resources aren't there to dome every stadium. But SMU going to South Bend, I've been to South Bend, Indiana in a late November game. It is blistering cold, and there's not a damn thing around South Bend, Indiana. The wind whips through there. SMU wants to be able, with Kenning Jennings, to throw the ball to keep defenses honest, to open up the run for him. I like Notre Dame in that case, right? So here's where I can't answer. I can't fill in any more of this bracket. Does SMU, with the loss to Clemson in the ACC title game, do they drop out? Do they drop behind Indiana? And in this case, Boise State's out. Do they drop behind Indiana but stay ahead of Alabama, who they have fewer losses but participated in more games? Do they drop behind Miami, a team in the same conference but who did not participate in the conference championship and have the same amount of losses at that point? I don't know. Let's say we don't drop anybody. That's going to put SMU at the 10 seed, the 11 seed at that point with a Boise State loss. The 11 seed at that point would be Bama. Do you know where Bama goes for their opening round matchup? Texas. They would be on their way back out to Austin. I don't think that is an uninteresting matchup, Bama v. Texas. They had a good game last year when they played each other. Maybe that's interesting. I don't know. And then the 12 seed in that spot, assuming no one drops out, the 12 seed would be Miami, with Ole Miss and South Carolina being the first two left out. This is why I'm saying there is not a path to the playoffs for South Carolina anymore. It hurts. It stings. But there's just not one. When they put Miami and Ole Miss ahead of you, you got screwed.
Even with all that chaos, if that chaos should happen, there's still no chance.
Nope. This is what I said. I prepared you for this yesterday. I told you yesterday that if South Carolina did not check in at 12 at the absolute worst, then they would still need a bunch of help. But if South Carolina could not find a way to number 11, there to me, even yesterday, was no path. And not only did they not find their way to 11, because I really thought that there was at least the potential. There was at least the potential that South Carolina would get the committee to put them over the two other SEC teams, Alabama and Ole Miss, who they're better football teams than today. But you lost the head-to-head matchups. And again, when you ask me the question, hey, Rob, Who's playing better ball? Who'd you put a paycheck on right now, South Carolina or Alabama? The answer is South Carolina. Who'd you put a paycheck on, South Carolina or Ole Miss? I'd put it on on South Carolina. But in order to make that your distinguishing mark, what you are saying is your number one test is the eye test. They just look like they're playing better ball. And they are playing better ball against better opponents. For sure. For sure, they're playing better ball against better opponents. But you are saying the eye test is your number one metric. And I am not telling you that you are wrong for that. This is why it's so subjective. This is why there is no way to write down a formula to figure out who's in the 12. There's no way to do that. To say, all right, flow chart it. If X, then Y. If Y, then Z. And if Z, then this team goes. There's no way to do that. So if you're going the eye test is the most important metric. I just look and I see the 12 best teams. Okay, good. I'm good with that. But there's also a lot of people out there who believe that head-to-head in-season matchups matter. Now, I would make this argument. Head-to-head in-season matchups should only matter if everything else is pretty much equal. In this case, between Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, everything else with the exception of strength of schedule is pretty much equal. And I don't know, as good as South Carolina's strength of schedule was, I don't know if it's so dramatically better than Alabama that I can say the strength of schedule is so much better than Alabama's that the heads-up loss doesn't matter anymore. That's why this whole thing's interesting.
The Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, time to ask Rob what is Xing, and he will tell us why. First person who's Xing is Joe Burrow.
Joey B. Xing. Real quick, I do want to address this text. Texter said, if Clemson wins, Alabama is out because they will not punish SMU by moving them down 3 spots. Would you bet me a paycheck on that? Would you bet me a paycheck that Alabama is not bumped out? Because I asked Ryan Horvath that question last night, and he said no. Joey B. is trending because the Bengals stink, yet Joey B's going for 7,000 yards this year.
No, a couple of weeks ago.
New haircut.
Couple of weeks ago, a major item went on sale and he just bought one. And that would be, he paid a couple $1 million for one of the tumblers from The Dark Knight. And these are fully functional and they have heads up displays. They got sound systems in it, all that.
Not street legal. I did see that.
So Joe Burrow is now Batman.
Is Joey B me? I think he's me, but with like better hair and millions of dollars.
I am curious how he fits in one of those. And if they would have to redo the seat to make, because he's what, 6'4", 6'5"?
Let's see. Christian Bale is 6 foot on the dot. Joe Burrow's height is 6'4".
Yeah. So
I'll tell you right now, straight up. If I got to compress my ass 4 inches, but I get a Batman tumbler?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And
all in.
Well, actually, and being able to afford that would be kind of cool too. The next thing that's Xing.
Dude, if we had $100 million sitting around, we're both buying one, right?
Yeah, we're in trouble.
We're racing them.
Yeah, we are.
Somebody meet us out in Pickens, boys. We're going racing.
And probably got a good shot at crashing on them still surviving.
Does it come with a dope little motorcycle, though?
I don't think so.
That's what I want.
I don't think so. The next person that's Xing is Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei should be Xing every day. She is America's sweetheart. Okay? Sit down, Julia Roberts. Marissa Tomei is America's sweetheart. She's trending because she just publicly asked me out on a date on Twitter.
Yeah, I don't think that's why. It's her
birthday. The shot.
It's her birthday.
Ooh, happy birthday. I'm not even going to guess her age. She's timeless. She's ageless. She is amazing.
She's older than what you think, probably.
65.
Okay, she's 60.
Oh.
But still.
Marissa, still.
Is that in your range?
Still
That's
Marissa.
still 60s in your range.
Marissa,
okay.
you're in my age.
Okay.
You're in my age.
The next thing that's Xing, and I don't know if you knew this. This is very important. National Signing Day.
It is National Signing Day. Rob, why haven't you been covering National Signing Day? Well, because the people who care about National Signing Day, you're following National Signing Day. The people who care about National Signing Day, you know more about these recruits than I do. Listen, I will talk about a class and a composite, and that's an important thing, but I'm not going to get into the individual decision-making process of 16 and 17-year-old boys and where they go decide to play football. I will talk about the recruiting process and the coaches that I think are doing the best job, and Shane Beamer's absolutely one of them without a doubt. But I'm not going to break down player film. You want to know when to ask me about the 2024 recruiting class? 2026, when I've seen them play college football.
All right, the next thing is Xing is Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch got to be coming back soon, right? Like they got to throw it after the War Games. They've got to throw a wrinkle into the women's title picture, and Becky Lynch is going to be that wrinkle.
All right, she just showed up at a Netflix media event for WWE.
And as Netflix moves over to Raw, Netflix wants all the stars that they can get to show up, and there is only one star in women's wrestling bigger than the last kicker.
Charlotte Flair.
Nope.
For sure.
Where's Charlotte Flair been? What's she doing
She
right
was
now?
injured. She had a
That's
major.
fine.
She had a major injury.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Becky Lynch coming back makes her second only to mommy.
No. When the Queen comes back, she will outshine everyone, and that would be Charlotte Flair. And finally, Harrison Ford is Xing.
Because it's his birthday too?
No. No one can figure out why he's Xing, and we got the old Denzel tapping his chest thing. Everyone's worried because but he's just he's Xing.
Real quick before we get out, Texas said they used the eye test last year for Alabama and the name on their jersey earlier this season, and they only cared about wins when Alabama lost to Tennessee. No, I was screaming at this last year, and all of you said I was a butthurt Florida boy. I tried to warn you a year ago. Learn you alone. I let no ball. Listen to me. Have a great day. Don't drink and drive. I'll punch you in the face. See you back here tomorrow for the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate later.
I know what kind of conference we play in.
That's the only clip I remember to put up there, so it's all I had.
What was that? I mean, you know.
I just had to play something. Oh, baby. Marissa Tomei. It's a trick question. They didn't have a rear suspension on the 1963.
Well, you were close. I don't remember it either. But yeah.
It's a trick question.
Got
And straight up, that was the hottest Marissa Tomei. I don't care what any of you say.
I don't know. Didn't she? I never watched The Wrestler, but but she
was a stripper in The
Wrestler.
Wrestler.
She was a stripper in that. So I'm guessing she was probably pretty hot in
Thank you, Mickey Rourke. Thank you for making that movie be made. Oh, man.
Was that movie any good? I thought.
It wasn't bad. It's it will make you sad.
Okay.
But it's a great story. I enjoyed it. I saw it when it came out.
The only thing that makes me sad right now is Big E, which we definitely will be talking about tomorrow.
And nothing else, I assume. I want you to know.
There is a PLE.
Very rarely are there heel turns that make me genuinely be like, I hope you lose forever. I have been maintained that I am one of the biggest Xavier Woods fans on planet Earth. I love this guy. I hate Xavier Woods now. Like, that's how good of a heel turn that was. I hate one of my favorite wrestlers now.
All right, so save it. So that's why we haven't really talked about it all week. So we could really explore it tomorrow.
It's going to get passionate up in here tomorrow.
It will. It will.
Because we both love big, meaty men like Big E.
That was one of the best.
Swerves in a minute.
Yeah.
Like in a minute, for sure. Okay. All right, guys. Thank y'all for being here. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you. Tell your friends about us. We're trying to get rich and famous. Have a great day. Goodbye.